Hey guys! This is part 7 of What If Naruto Became the Raikage. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start.
We are pain, that's all. We are God.
Chapter 13 with the observing groups. After the light of Naruto's attack died down, those nearby could see that the cleared battlefield that was inside the barrier had been turned into one giant crater. Many, of course, were stunned with the level of destruction that Naruto's final attack had done. Also, many, like Naruto's friends and subordinates, grew concerned for Naruto's well-being. But those concerns quickly subsided when they saw a figure standing at the bottom of the crater, where when the dust from the explosion dissipated, they saw that Naruto was the figure standing in the crater. But as soon as those concerns subsided, they rose again, when they saw him collapsed onto the ground. As soon as Soifun, Akatsuki, Mitsuhide, and the others that were holding up the barrier around the cleared battlefield saw this, they quickly deactivated the barrier and jumped down to Naruto and see how his was. They were then soon joined by Zhuge Liang, Killer B, Fu, Yujito, and the Konoha and Suna groups. When they got to Naruto, they found Soifun kneeling over him with Mitsuhide and Sayuri standing over them, while the others surrounded them and kept guard and watch in case anyone decided to take advantage of Naruto's weakened state. "Is he alright?" asked the concerned Tsunade, as she and the other came up to them. "He's fine, he's just unconscious from exhaustion," replied Soifun, as she lifted her hand from his forehead. At hearing this, Tsunade then stepped forward and walked towards Naruto, but before she could get any closer, Ryu and Okatsu stepped in front of her and stopped her from coming any closer to Naruto. "I'm sorry, Hokage-san, but you can go no further," spoke Ryu politely. "But I'm just going over to help heal him," said Tsunade. "I'm sorry, Hokage-san, but we cannot allow any medic that is not from our village, even you, to go near the Raikage," replied Ryu. Before Tsunade could respond to this, 2 teams of storm means appeared in front of the groups. Upon seeing them, Zhuge Liang stepped forward and took charge. "Sitrep! Zhuge Liang-sama, the majority of the enemy forces have all but retreated now. There are a few pockets of resistance, but they're being quickly put down and rounded up as we speak, along with the other enemy shinobis that we've captured or have surrendered to us," spoke the leader of the storm group, who wore a wolf-shaped mask. Upon hearing this, revealed looks appeared on the faces of most of the Konoha members, as the battle for Konoha was finally over, and they'd won and survived. "Very good then. Once all resistance has been subdued and the village has been secured, have our shinobis help with the gathering up and care of all those wounded on both sides. Is that clear?" spoke Zhuge Liang with authority. "Hi! Zhuge Liang-sama," spoke Wolf, as he and his team left to give out Zhuge Liang's orders, while the second team remained with them. "So you're not only going to help your wounded along with ours, but also the enemies as well?" said Kakashi, with surprise, as things such as this were rare, where the victors of any battle rarely showed any mercy to the wounded of the opposing side. Even then, it was mainly given to those who had some worth, such as those who were of some importance, or wealthy families and clans, who could be held for ransom, or those who had valuable information. "Even in wartime there are rules, Hataki-san, and even if most do not follow those rules, we will, as little human compassion can go along with and making today's enemy your friend tomorrow," answered Zhuge Liang. Upon saying this, Zhuge Liang then turned to Soifun. "Soifun-san, I want you and Yoruichi-san to bring the Raikage to hospital so that he can be treated for whatever injuries that he still may have." At this, Soifun nodded, where with Yoruichi help she picked Naruto up. As she was doing this, Zhuge Liang turned to the storm team and spoke to the team leader, who wore a shark-shaped mask. "You Shark, I want you and your team to escort Yoruichi-san and Soifun-san to the hospital and make sure that the Raikage arrives there safely." At this, the 4 storm means nodded their heads in understanding, after which Soifun and Yoruichi both used their high-speed techniques and sped off towards the hospital, with the storm team following not too far behind. After a few minutes, Soifun and Yoruichi arrived at the hospital, where hundreds of shinobis, from Suna, Konoha, Iwa, Oto, Kusa, New Kumo, the Tsuchigumo clan and the Hanya clan lay on the courtyard, as the hospital, along with the emergency hospital and the Hokage monument, were overflown with injured shinobis, with more coming in. As Soifun and Yoruichi carried Naruto into the hospital to find Uno Hanaretsu, the head of New Kumo's combat medic Nin Corp in hospital, so that she could look over Naruto, as she was the only one they could trust to care for Naruto. They were suddenly blocked at the entrance by 2 Konoha Chunins, and a Jonin along with 2 more Chunins appeared behind Soifun and Yorichi. When Soifun saw this, she narrowed her eyes angrily, as she wasn't surprised at this and knew why these shinobi were blocking their path. "You'll move aside, as we need to get into the hospital now," spoke Yorichi. "We don't take orders from foreign shinobis, especially those who serve under that thing," spat the Jonin, as he indicated at the unconscious Naruto angrily. "So is this how the noble village of Konoha treats the person who helped save it again?" said Soifun with no small measure of disgust at how the shinobis were treating them. "That thing doesn't belong here, nor do you. Almost a third of our village has been destroyed by thing alone. All it does is cause destruction and misery for us, so get it out of here," cried the Jonin, and as glared at 2 women and the unconscious Naruto that they who carrying. "And if we don't?" asked Soifun, although she already knew the answer to the question. "Then we'll force you out," sneered the Jonin, as he and the Chunins beside him and the 2 behind Soifun and Yorichi took out their kunais, indicating that they were serious. At seeing this, Soifun growled, as normally she and Yorichi could easily take on and deal with these arrogant fools. But as of right now, either she nor Yorichi were in any great shape, as they were both worn out from holding the barrier and containing Naruto's power when he was using the Kyuubi's chakra. Not to mention as well, they were holding Naruto, hence fighting these shinobis in their current condition, along with protecting Naruto, was not an ideal situation. Fortunately though for them, they did not have to worry for very long, for as soon as the 5 Konoha shinobis took out their kunais, said shinobis found several blades pointed at their necks. Said blades belonged to the 4 storm shinobis that Zhuge Liang sent to watch Soifun and Yorichi, as they carried the unconscious Naruto to the hospital in case something like this happened. The leader of the storm team, along with 2 of his teammates, were standing directly behind the Jonin and his 2 Chunin partners, with the storm leader Shark holding his katana in a reverse grip at the front of the Jonin's neck, while Shark's teammates held the 2 Chunin in similar positions. At the same time, the 2 Chunins behind Soifun and Yorichi were being held by the 4th Storm Nin, who stood between the 2 Chunins and held his katana blade at the neck of the Chunin to his right, while he held a kunai blade at the neck of the Chunin on his left. "I suggest that you and your friends lower your weapons right now, and slowly, because if you don't, you will not live long enough to regret it," spoke Shark in a dangerous tone of voice. "Who the hell are these guys?" thought the Jonin with confusion and disbelief, as he hadn't even sensed the storm means behind him, nor did any of the others. As this was happening, several Konoha shinobis nearby saw the altercation that was happening and were about to help, although they did not know what was fully going on. But before they could go over to them, they were stopped by a large group of new Kumo shinobis who also saw what was happening and who surrounded the Konoha ninjas and had their weapons pointed at them. Seeing this standoff, many of the medics treating the wounded grew concerned that a fight would break out, where the wounded and them would get caught up in. Luckily though, before things could get any more out of hand, Tsunade, Zhuge Liang, Jiraiya and the others arrived. "What the hell is going on here?" cried Tsunade as she saw what was going on. "These men here were refusing to let us in, so to give the Raikage the care he needs," spoke Soifun angrily, where she used the word men loosely, as she didn't think they were worth even being called men. "Is this true?" asked Tsunade angrily as she glared at the 5 shinobis. "Hokage-sama, you cannot allow that thing into the hospital to be healed," spoke Jonin. When Tsunade and the others heard this, many of them became angry at how the shinobis were treating Naruto, after he helped save the village. "You will let them pass immediately and let Naruto get the care he needs, since if it wasn't for Naruto our village would have been destroyed," spoke Tsunade furiously. "But Hokage-sama, look at what he did to the village. Almost a third of it was destroyed because of him. We cannot let him recover. You felt his power earlier. He's a danger to the village," cried one of the Chunins. "I've heard enough. You will do as I say and lower your weapons and let them pass. That is an order," shouted Tsunade in an authoritative tone, showing why she was the Hokage. After hearing their Hokage's order, the shinobis slowly but reluctantly lowered their weapons, where the storm means did the same, when they were given a signal by Mitsuhide to lower their weapons. Once the 5 shinobis lowered their weapons, Tsunade turned to the Konoha ninjas that were surrounded by the new Kumo shinobis and ordered them to do the same, which they did, where the new Kumo shinobis quickly followed suit. Once the situation had calmed down a bit, Tsunade spoke to the Konoha ninjas that were surrounded by the new Kumo shinobis. "You lot, I want you to arrest those 5 shinobis over there for threatening a kaiga for a foreign village without cause," ordered Tsunade, as attacking the leader of a foreign village without provocation, especially if they weren't at war with said village, was a high crime in any shinobi village and was extremely close to treason. Bibu but Hokage-sama if we dash, spoke a jonin, but before he could finish he was interrupted by Tsunade. That's an order! Cried Tsunade angrily as lead killing intent and glared at the man, who gulped, but nodded in understanding, where he and his men went to the 5 shinobis. When the 5 shinobis heard this they thought about resisting, but that thought quickly faded, for as if reading their minds, Zhuge Liang spoke up. I wouldn't try resisting if I were you gentlemen, because if you try, you will be killed on the spot, as the storm shinobis next to you will not hesitate to kill you. As they would be well in their rights to do so, as you did threaten our shinobis and our Raikage. After hearing this, the 5 shinobis gave up without a fight and were taken away, as they knew this was a no-win situation for them, given who they were up against. As the shinobis were taken away, Tsunade planned to deal with them later on, where she would have them stripped of their ranks and have their chakras sealed and spend the next 8 months in Konoha's strict correctional facility. After the situation was dealt with, Soifun and Yoruchi along with the rest of the new Kumo group entered the hospital, to find Retsu and get Naruto the care he needed. Operation Clean Sweep. At the same time as the Battle of Konoha was raging, another battle was about to begin at a coastal fortress and port belonging to Kiri off the northern part of the Mizu no Kuni, water country. Currently stationed at the fort were about 300 Kiri shinobis along with about 25 of their ships, which was the remaining part of their grand fleet that stayed behind to help protect their country. The fort itself was built atop a large cliffside that overlooked the sea and coast. It had strong walls and high towers and battlements, where the fortress's cannons, volley guns and ballistas could easily fire at any incoming ship or group of ships. Below the fortress was a large dock that housed the remaining Kiri ships that remained behind to help protect the country. The dock was built within the coastal causeway below the fortress. Less than a mile away from the fortress was also a base camp, which belonged to the Mizu daimyo, which held about 1,500 of his soldiers and about 300 of his samurai. As a few Kiri guards were looking out towards the horizon looking out for any arriving ships, several of them were discussing about the battle was no doubt happening at this moment. Many of the shinobis were expressing wishes that they could have gone and joined the Mizukage and the main force in their attack on Konoha, as they were all certain that they would win this war, considering the force that Konoha and Suna was up against. The shinobis had wanted to go in the hopes of earning fame and glory at the battle, along with boasting to others that they took part in the battle that destroyed the once mighty Konoha. As the shinobis talked amongst themselves, some of them heard a sounds of something large falling, after which there was a large crashing sound with something hitting the ground hard and shattering. When the shinobis looked out to the fortress courtyard, they saw hundreds of large ice spikes falling to the ground and all around the fortress and the dock, sinking several ships, when the ice spikes hit them and causing many Kiri shinobis to scatter and run for cover. "Look out!" cried a kunoichi, as she had the other shinobis duck underneath the window, so to avoid the thousands of ice shards that flew through the open window from a large ice spike that fell from the sky and onto a nearby battlement and shattered into thousands of pieces. For the next few minutes the bombardment of falling ice spikes fell down on the fortress and the port. When the bombardment began, the commander of the fortress immediately ordered the siren to sound, alerting everyone that they were under attack. Soon after, the bombardment of ice spikes ended, after which the water at the dock began to recede. When Kiri shinobis in fortress saw the bombardment had ended, they looked up to the sky and then to the sea, where they saw the water at the dock receding into the sea, after which they saw a single man wearing a white coat and long white hair that fell down his back, floating in the sky. "Who the hell is that guy?" asked one shinobi. "Could he be the one that attacked us?" asked another shinobi. As the Kiri shinobis looked towards the man, they saw the man do several hand seals, where when he finished a giant tsunami wave appeared and headed straight towards the dock and the fortress. Seeing the giant tsunami heading for them, the shinobis quickly headed into the main part of the fortress and bolted the doors and the windows shut, hopping to withstand the giant tsunami wave. Those that were below at the dock quickly ran up the narrow path that lead up to the fortress in hope of escaping the wave. Sadly though, as the wave got closer, those inside the fortress closed the gates shut, locking out any others that could not get into the fortress in time. Soon after the wave hit the dock and the fortress, completely destroying the fleet at the dock and the dock itself, where anyone that remained there drowned. When the wave hit the fortress, it completely enveloped it, where anyone that remained outside it suffered the same fate as those below at the dock. The fortress itself survived the wave along with most of those that were in it, but even still, Many that were inside it were severely wounded when the wave was able to burst through the windows of the fortress and flooding large parts of the fortress. When the tsunami wave blasted through, the water then began to freeze, covering the fortress in ice, and freezing the shinobis inside the fortress in, with the doors and windows covered in a thick ice and unable to get out. With the fortress now frozen and covered in ice, the white-cloaked man then used Kirigakure no Jutsu, art of hiding in the mist, to cover the entire horizon in a thick mist. An hour or so after the attack, the shinobis trapped within the fortress were able to free themselves, where they were then joined by the Mizu daimyo's forces, that were based a mile away from the fortress. When the two forces joined together, the fortress came under attack by cannon fire. The few remaining shinobis inside the fortress of course tried to use the weapons inside the fortress, but most of the cannons, volley guns and ballistas, were either destroyed by the tsunami or were froze by the ice. Even with the few remaining weapons that still somehow worked, the shinobis couldn't target their cannons or other weapons, as the mist hid the location and number of the enemy's ships. Soon after, the remaining shinobis in the fortress abandoned their position, as after several minutes of constant firing from the unknown ships, the fortress quickly became undefendable. After which the shinobis, along with the samurai and the soldiers belonging to the Mizu daimyo, quickly fell back to the nearby tree line for cover, and to have a view of the flat beachhead on the left-hand side of the fortress. Since given the attack on the fortress, it was obvious that this was the beginning of some kind of invasion by some unknown nation. Soon after, the bombardment on the fortress stopped and the mist began to clear, but when it did, the eyes of every shinobi, samurai and soldiers there widened to the size of plates, as instead of seeing a fleet of enemy ships, they saw an entire armada of over 700 ships of every size imaginable. The most notable things about this armada was that it was being led by the Raikage's fortress ship and flagship of New Kumo's fleet, the Zenio Ryo. Along with the Zenio Ryo were 4 other fortress ships and flanked it in AV formation. The other most notable thing about the armada was that these ships did not all belong to New Kumo, as the armada was made up of several other nations that belonged to the Heavenly Alliance. Judging by the flags on the ships of the armada was made up of ships from New Kumogakure, Hidden Cloud, Yukigakure, Hidden Snow, Shimo no Kuni, Frost Country, Shimagakure, Hidden Frost, Yuki/Haru no Kuni, Snow/Spring Country, Yu no Kuni, Hot Spring Country, and Kaminari no Kuni, Lightning Country. 3 of the 4 other fortress ships had the flags of Yuki no Kuni on them, while last remaining one had the flag of Yukigakure. On board the Zenio Ryo, currently standing on the forward deck of the Zenio Ryo, the commander of New Kumo's fleet and leader of the Armada Gon-ning was waiting for the supreme commander of this invasion, Seiwa Anasu. Gon-ning did not have to wait long, as Anasu soon floated down from the sky and deactivated his wind flying technique. Anasu wore a black sleeveless shirt, with black shinobi pants, and wore black boots, with steel tips at its toes and heels, as well as wore a white trench with the kanji symbol for frost on its back, with blue snowflake on the edges of the trench coat. He also had a green sash around his shoulders, held together by a round clip. The sash held his long sword sheath in place on his back and is tied to it at either end. His sword was called Hairinru. Its blade was about 1.4 meters long with the exception of the guard, which is in the shape of a 4-pointed bronze-colored star. "Hey Anasu! Great work on the fortress and the port, as it make our job a lot easier," spoke Gon-ning. "Not a problem. So are the landing forces ready?" asked Anasu. "Yep. The first wave is lock, stock, and ready to go. They're just waiting for the go-ahead from us," replied Gon-ning. "Good, as today we are about to free our former homeland from tyranny of the Godame Mizukage and the Mizu daimyo," spoke Anasu. "Yeah, this day been a long time coming," replied Gon-ning, where he then placed his hand on his sword Leviathan. Seeing this, Anasu smiled, knowing that Gon-ning was inching to part of the first wave, as Gon-ning hated to be out of a good fight. "Then by all means, my friend, do not let me delay you any longer," spoke Anasu, giving him the go-ahead to join the first wave. Hearing this, Gon-ning smiled and gave Anasu a nod of thanks, before he quickly left and boarded one of the landing boats. Street Fighter, Score, OST Coronel Guile addresses the troops, 114 to 249. After a few minutes, several dozen medium-sized versions of the fortress ships moved forward towards the beach. The ships soon landed on the beach and opened up their fronts, revealing landing platforms, after which hundreds of shinobis from New Kumo, Shimo, and Yuki, along with hundreds of samurai and soldiers from Yuki/Haru no Kuni, Shimo no Kuni, Yu no Kuni, and Kaminari no Kuni charged out of the ships and onto the beach. 1. Seeing the enemy forces landing, the Mizu no Kuni, water country, soldiers and samurai, along with the Kiri shinobis charged out of the tree line and towards the Heavenly Alliance forces, hoping to head off the invading forces and prevent them from gaining a foothold on the beach and drive them back. When Gan-ning saw the Kiri and Mizu no Kuni forces charging towards them from the tree line, he immediately took charge of the forces that landed. "Come you lot, let's rock and roll!" cried Gan-ning, where he charged straight at the charging enemy with his men. Within seconds the two forces clashed with each other in a fierce battle on the beach, with both sides struggling to drive the other back. For a while the battle remained in a deadlock, with both sides battling furiously with one another. Eventually, though, the battle turned in favor of the Heavenly Alliance force, as the Kiri and Mizu no Kuni forces were unable to drive the Heavenly Alliance forces back, where more Alliance landing ships landed and more Alliance reinforcements arrived to join the fight. Eventually the Heavenly Alliance forces drove them back, where the remaining Kiri and Mizu no Kuni forces were forced to retreat. End Street Fighter, Score, OST Coronel Guile addresses the troops, 114-249. After securing the beachhead and the fortress, the main body of the Heavenly Alliance invasion force began to land and move on with their invasion. At the same time that the northern part of Mizu no Kuni was being invaded, the second southern fleet of Mizu no Kuni was making its patrol of the southern region of their country. As the fleet was sailing, a crewman in the crow's nest of the command ship suddenly spotted a large armada of ships heading towards them. "Admiral, sir! Unknown ships on the port side!" cried the crewman. When the admiral of the fleet turned to where the crewman was pointing to, he could see the figures of a large number of ships heading into their direction, but couldn't tell who the ships belonged to. "Can you tell who the ships belong to?" cried the admiral at this. The crewman looked through his eyeglass, trying to get a better look at the flags of the ship. There he saw that the armada didn't belong to one nation but to several. "Well?" cried the admiral. "Sir, the armada is made up of ships from several nations. The ships are from Getsugakure, Hidden Under the Moon, Kaminari no Kuni, Cha no Kuni, Tea Country, Suki no Kuni, Moon Country, New Kumo, Umi no Kuni, Sea Country." The admiral was of course shocked at hearing this, as he knew what this meant. "New Kumo, Kaminari no Kuni, and Cha no Kuni! That means that the Heavenly Alliance is involved and is invading us. Also, if that is case, then that means that Suki no Kuni, Umi no Kuni, and Getsugakure have indeed joined the Heavenly Alliance," thought the admiral, as he had heard rumors about those countries joining the Heavenly Alliance, but didn't know they were true or not. "How many ships are there?" asked the admiral, wanting to know what he was up against. For a moment or two the crewman didn't answer, but before admiral could ask again the crewman finally spoke. About 500-foot ships, sir," replied a worried crewman. After hearing the crewman's answer, the Mizu no Kuni admiral immediately had his men signal the other ships to turn around and to get into battle formation, as he knew they were outnumbered 5-1 and needed to fall into a defensive position before the Heavenly Alliance fleet could hit them. Quickly the Mizu no Kuni fleet fell into battle formation, where when the fleet fell into position, the 4 fortress ships with Kaminari no Kuni flags that were leading the armada then moved forward in front of the Alliance fleet. The fortress ships then fell into a diamond formation and headed straight for the Mizu no Kuni fleet. As the fortress ships came into firing range for the Mizu no Kuni fleet, they opened fire and let loose barrage of projections at the fortress ships. Unfortunately for them, the projections did little damage to the fortress ships, as they were much stronger and could take a great deal of damage. The fortress ships continued to move forward right towards the fleet, without slowing down in the slightest, where they then plowed right through the Mizu no Kuni fleet, smashing through the smaller warships that got in their way and destroyed them like they were nothing. Once the fortress ships had reached the center of the fleet, the fortress ships opened up all their gun ports on both sides and the ones in front and behind, after which they fired all their cannons and let loose a massive bombardment upon the enemy fleet. Within minutes the entire Mizu no Kuni second fleet was destroyed by the 4 fortress ships. With the Mizu no Kuni fleet dealt with, the rest of the Heavenly Alliance armada caught up with the fortress ships, where all that was left was to gather up the survivors of the fleet. Since with the Mizu no Kuni second fleet dealt with, there wasn't another force in the area that could stop or interfere with their invasion of Mizu no Kuni from the south and join up with the force from the north later on. Within the next few hours, several thousand new Kumo and Getsugakure shinobis, along with thousands of samurai and soldiers from Umi no Kuni, Cha no Kuni, Suki no Kuni and Kaminari no Kuni landed on the nearby beachhead and began to move out to begin their invasion of Mizu no Kuni and Kirigakure. 3 days later at the Mizu Daimyo Palace, currently sitting in his grand palace on his high throne, the Mizu Daimyo Fujiwara Ashu was surrounded by several beautiful young girls, laughing drunkenly and having the girls serve him sake. Ashu was a rather plump man, who enjoyed living a life of luxury, such as having extravagant food, as well as having extravagant clothes, jewelry and decor, along with having many beautiful young girls surround him and having his way with them. He cared little for his people or for anyone else, as he left most of his duties to others or did nothing about them whatsoever, as he preferred to ignore such matters. As he was enjoying his private little party, the two great doors that lead to the throne suddenly opened up, where several soldiers entered the room and were being led by the samurai general of the Mizu no Kuni army, Usuji Kenshin. Usuji Kenshin was the most famed and revered samurai general in all of Mizu no Kuni, where he was known by many people throughout the elemental continent as the Senso no Kami, the god of war, due to his great tactical and fighting skills in battle. 2. Kenshin was also the clan head of the strongest and most noble samurai clan in all of Mizu no Kuni, the Usuji clan. He was also famed for wielding a special sword that allowed him to do ice techniques similar to the Hayatan users of Kiri, although not on the same level as them. When Ashu saw Kenshin and his soldiers enter the throne room, he stood up from his throne and the girls and walked towards the samurai general. Kenshin, what is the meaning of this? Why have you interrupted me when I occupied with important matters of state? My apologies, my lord, but I've important news that you must hear, spoke Kenshin respectfully. Well, whatever it is, I'm sure you can take care of it, as I'm a busy man, Kenshin, and I do not have time to deal with trivial matters, spoke the Mizu Daimyo dismissively, as he didn't wish to be bothered. I'm afraid that the matter, to which I speak of, needs your attention, my lord, spoke Kenshin calmly and politely. Then what is it? Cried Ashu, as he was tempted to send Kenshin to the dungeons for disturbing him, regardless of how popular he was with the common people and the army. It seems that we're being invaded, my lord, said Kenshin calmly. At hearing this, the Mizu Daimyo dropped the fan he was holding in shock. We're being invaded? Spoke the shocked Daimyo, where Kenshin just nodded. By who? It seems by the Heavenly Alliance and its allies, where in the north an armada of over 700 ships has landed and destroyed Kiri's northern fortress, and their remaining ships at dock there. In the south another armada belonging to the Heavenly Alliance landed at the same time, as in the north, and has destroyed all 100 ships of the southern Second Fleet. Both forces have landed armies which are moving with phenomenal speed, spoke Kenshin. Why am I only hearing this now? Cried the furious daimyo. I'm afraid that the rebel factions have been cutting all our lines of communications and intercepting our messengers, which is why we have only heard this now, replied Kenshin. Then what are you doing here just talking? Assemble our armies, and gather our forces to face them and drive them into the sea, roared the now worried daimyo. I'm afraid that too is impossible, for as I said, the rebel factions have cut off most of our lines of communication, and we cannot make contact with most of our forces throughout the country. The few messengers that have gotten through have informed us that most of our bases, fortresses, castle, and other forces are currently all under attack by the rebel factions at this moment and need support. While others reports say that many of the main roads and bridges have been blocked or been destroyed, where our few remaining free forces cannot help us or the others, answered Kenshin. Then send word to Kiri, and have the remaining shinobi forces that Shiro left there help us, said Ashu. I regret to report to you, my lord, that as of yesterday afternoon Kiri has fallen to the combined forces of the shinobi villages of the Heavenly Alliance and the shinobi rebel factions, spoke Kenshin calmly. What? But how? Cried the worried Mizu daimyo, as he had always depended greatly of Kiri and Shiro's support in keeping control of his country and keeping the rebel forces in check. It seems that at the same time as the two-prong invasion began, there was an uprising of the majority of the civilian population in the village, as well as an attack by the shinobi rebel factions. Despite the surprise attack, the force that the Mizukage left there were able to hold them back. But the rebels were then quickly joined by the shinobis of New Kumo, Yuki, Shimo and Getsu, where with their help they quickly defeated the Mizukage's forces and took control of the village. Along with that, over half the country has already fallen to the Heavenly Alliance forces, where the two armies have joined with a large force of rebels, and they're marching here as we speak, said Kenshin. The rebels have allied themselves with the Heavenly Alliance? Spoke the Mizu daimyo with surprise, where Kenshin just nodded. When Ashu heard this, he was on the verge of having a panic attack, as his whole world was crumbling around him. Then man the defensive, have your forces and the city guard prepare for a siege. We can hold out until Shirokans and his forces return from destroying Konoha. I'm afraid that too is impossible, my lord, as the enemy army has already sent a vanguard ahead of itself, and is at out gates, while the main enemy army is less than a mile away from the city. Hence we do not have sufficient time to put up any kind of defiance, my lord, replied Kenshin. Then we must flee immediately. Quickly, Kenshin, you and your men must help me gather as much of my treasures as you all can carry, and take the fastest ship out of here, cried the panic-stricken overweight daimyo. But what about the people, my lord? Asked Kenshin calmly, as if not worried about the current situation. The people? Who cares about those lowly commoners? They exist only to serve us, they do not matter. The only thing that matters is me, so hurry up and let us flee this place, cried Ashu. I'm afraid that it is already too late for that as well, my lord, spoke Kenshin, with a slight smile, where he snapped his finger to signal his men, where the soldier around him and the Mizu daimyo all pointed their swords and spears at the Mizu daimyo. Kenshin! What is the meaning of this? Cried Ashu with confusion and fear, whereupon seeing this, the young girls that were serving the daimyo sake quickly ran out of the throne room with fear. I believe that it would be quite oblivious, my lord. We're taking over, my lord, as my clansmen along with soldiers that are loyal to me, have already taken control of the palace, as well as the capital itself, and are preparing to hand it to the Heavenly Alliance army, so no more blood need be shed, spoke Kenshin. TTTH, this is sedition, cried Ashu. Sedition usually happens when the world needs to change, my lord, spoke Kenshin, where he then drew his katana out. WWWH, what are you doing? Spoke the frightened man. I believe that too would be obvious, my lord. With every revolution, the leader of the previous ruling government will always die in a gruesome death, such as being torn apart piece by an angry mob, or by wild animals. But that will not happen, as our country has seen enough of such things, so I shall do the deed myself and make it quick and clean. Wait, Lord Kenshin, I can give you money, women, gold, anything you could want. Just please do kill me. There is still so much I haven't done yet, so many foods I've not eaten, so many women I have not pleasured yet, so please don't kill me, I'm not ready to die yet, begged the whimpering daimyo, but Kenshin ignored the man's pleas. All the wealth in the world cannot buy off the blood that has been split because of you, Lord Ashu, because of your greed, corruption, selfishness, and lust. Our people have suffered endless amount of bloodshed and live in constant fear and poverty, and our country has been torn apart by conflict and turmoil. While you feed your endless hunger for money, women, and food and turn a blind eye to our people's suffering. You say that the common people exist to serve us, but that is where you're wrong. We exist to serve them, as without the common people, our country would not exist. It is our duty to lead and protect the people of our country, and you've abused that duty and responsibility for too long, and have brought our country to near ruin, spoke Kenshin coldly. After Kenshin said this, Ashu was on his knees begging for his life, saying he was sorry and that he would do anything to make up for it. But Kenshin knew that the man didn't mean a word he said, as all he ever cared about was himself, where he then raised his blade, where with one quick clean swipe of his katana, he cut the daimyo's head off, where it fell onto the floor and rolled a few feet away from his body, which fell to ground right after the head. After severing the Mizu daimyo's head, Kenshin flicked the blood off his katana, after which he then sheathed his katana and his men lowered their weapons. As soon as Kenshin sheathed his blade, a young kunoichi appeared. She had long blonde hair, tied into two long pigtails, which fell down below her rear. She wore a skin-tight kunoichi outfit that showed her entire figure. It also had a spit down the middle her front and went down just above her waist, where it slightly revealed her C-cup breast and stomach. 3. The kunoichi's name was Kasuga, and loyal vassal to Kenshin and his clan. Kasuga was a former kunoichi from a small shinobi village, who was sent to assassinate Kenshin. But instead of killing him, she fell in love with him, where she was banished from her village for failing in her mission. Later on, she was allowed to join Kenshin clan as a loyal vassal and servant to him. Kenshin-sama, our forces have complete control of the capital, and the main force of the Heavenly Alliance has been sighted from the distance, and should be here within the next hour or so, spoke Kasuga, and she bowed to her lord. It seems that the Raikage plan has indeed worked perfectly, as everything went exactly as he said it would, spoke Kenshin with a smile. As with the Mizu daimyo now dead and the capital under their control, Mizu no Kuni was now theirs, and all remaining resistance would quickly crumble once it was announced. Kasuga, Please go inform the Alliance vanguard at the gate that the Mizu daimyo is dead and we're in control of the capital, spoke Kenshin with a kind smile. Hi Kenshin-sama, spoke Kasuga with a large blush, when Kenshin smiled at her, after which she then shunned Shin-Bod flicker away. Once Kasuga left, Kenshin ordered his men to follow him to the gate of the capital, so that he would meet the commander of the Alliance invasion army, who was also formerly of Kirigakure and the right-hand man of the Raikage, Seiwa Anasu, or as the people of Kiri and his own people were now calling Korisui no Kami, the god of ice and water, due to his enormous skill and power in water and ice ninjutsu. As Kenshin was walking out of the throne room, he thought about the events that happened in the past few days, all because of one man, and how much his country and the rest of the elemental continent would change as well in the next few days to come. All because of that man. I look forward to day that we finally meet in person, Uzumaki Naruto, Rokudame Raikage of New Kumo. With Operation Judgment at the same time as the Battle of Konoha and the invasion of Mizu no Kuni and Kiri, another invasion was about to begin, this time in Ta no Kuni, Ricefield Country. Where two armies crossed the border between Yu no Kuni and Ta no Kuni, the first army was made up entirely of shinobis, while the second and much larger army was made up of samurai and regular soldiers. The shinobi invasion force was led by Ishida Ryukin, clan head of the Ishida clan, while samurai and regular force was led by Naomasa II, son of Naomasa Katsumoto, Lady Daimyo Kicho's Kenjutsu sensei and bodyguard. The invasion was made up of the combined forces of New Kumo, Kaminari no Kuni, Yu no Kuni and Yugakure, Hidden Hot Spring. The shinobi army quickly took care of the lightly guarded outposts belonging to the Ta no Kuni and Odogakure, Hidden Sound, before any of them could send word about the Heavenly Alliance invasion. Both armies then separated from one another, so to follow their own separate objectives. At the same time as the invasion, several large revolts erupted in Ta no Kuni, where several shinobi clans who had been used and persecuted by Orochimaru and his forces revolted, and were led by the Fuma clan and its clan head Hanzaki. Also at the same time, several other large revolts erupted, this time led by the Ta daimyo's nephew Prince Machi, who had seen how Orochimaru took control of his homeland and used it and his people for his own means. He also saw how his uncle had now become a puppet ruler of Ta no Kuni, which was why the Oto shinobis referred to it as Oto no Kuni, Sound Country. He then secretly gathered those who were like-minded as him and wanted to free their homeland. After which, they then secretly gathered forces and waited for the right time to stage their revolt. Thanks to being secretly allied with the Fuma clan, the Heavenly Alliance forces knew the locations of all of Orochimaru's secret bases, inside Ta no Kuni, where they were then able to make coordinated assaults on the bases, and easily overwhelmed and took over each of the bases before any of them could send a warning to any of the other bases. They did the same thing with the Oto no Kuni fortresses, bases, castles, thanks to Prince Machi secretly allying with them. Day after the Battle of Konoha, outside Orochimaru's main base. Ryukin-sama, our men are in position and are waiting for your signal, spoke a new Kumo Jonin. Very well, proceed as planned, spoke Ryukin in a monotone voice. Hi, replied the Jonin, before he disappeared into the trees. A few minutes later, 100 or so new Kumo shinobis charged into the unround entrance to Orochimaru main base. A few minutes after entering Orochimaru's main base, the new Kumo's shinobis came into contact with some of the shinobi guards left in the base, where they then fought with them. Soon after, several explosions were felt throughout the base. These explosions were caused by the roofs of the underground base being blown up and large holes appearing in them, where several hundred more new Kumo shinobis jumped into the holes made into the roofs and made their way throughout the base, attacking any Oto shinobis they saw. Damn it, these new Kumo bastards are everywhere, spoke an Oto Jonin to himself, as he fought two new Kumo Chunins by himself, and dodged some shurikens they threw at him. After dodging the shurikens, the Oto Jonin then saw a group of Oto shinobis coming towards him from a hallway from his left side. Seeing them coming towards him, the Jonin smiled at seeing reinforcements arriving. Over here you guys, now help me take care of these new Kumo trash, spoke the Jonin, after which the group of Oto shinobis stood next to the Jonin. But before the Jonin could give out any orders to the Oto shinobis, one of them took out a kunai and stabbed him the stomach. Surprised at what happened, the Oto Jonin looked at the Oto shinobi that stabbed him. WWWH what, the... said the Jonin as he stared at the Otonin that stabbed him in shock. But as he stared at him he saw that the headbands of the group of Otonins were all slashed. Why, you traitors! spoke the Jonin before he fell to the ground and died. Thanks for assistance, spoke one of the new Kumo Chunins. You're welcome, my clansman, and I've waited for this day a long time. Now at last the Fuma clan can finally avenge itself, spoke the now former Otonin. So is everything going as planned? Asked the other new Kumo Chunin. Hi, some of our other clansmen are helping your people as we speak, and the rest of our clan are doing their parts at the other bases, asked another now revealed Fuma ninja. Good, then let's finish this battle and finish off Orochimaru forces here, for good, said the first new Kumo Chunin, where the Fuma ninjas nodded in agreement and then took off. Later on in Orochimaru's throne room, the commander of the base was trying to figure what was exactly happening. From the few reports he got, he knew they were being attacked by new Kumo shinobis, along with a few Yu shinobis as well. As he was looking over a map of the base, with a few other senior Oto ninjas and Oto Chunin quickly entered the room. What is it? Asked the Oto commander. Sir, over 2/3 of the base has fallen to the enemy, where the north and west wings have fallen to the enemy, and over half the east wing has just fallen, spoke the Chunin. Impossible! How can they navigate through the base so quickly, and how can they be taking it so easily? Spoke the commander in surprise. As even with their few numbers, the Alliance force should be having a much harder time, especially with the base's traps. I believe it is because of the Fuma clan, as well as several of the other shinobi clans, who have betrayed us, are helping the enemy shinobis by telling them where to go. They're also most likely telling them how to avoid the base's traps and are attacking our own shinobis, spoke the Chunin. Damn those traitors, said the commander as he slammed his fist on the table with the map of the base. But before he could say anything else, there was a sudden large explosion, which blew up the wall in front of them. When they looked up, they saw a tall man with short white hair, glasses, wearing a long white trench coat and holding a strange bow connected to a glove on his arm, with an arrow made out of chakra strung on it and aimed at them. The man in question was none other than Ishida Ryukin. Who the hell are you? Cried the Oto commander in shock. Your executor if you don't surrender now, spoke Ryukin coldly. At this, the Oto commander just narrowed his eyes and went to take up one of his kunai from his pouch. But before he could, a chakra arrow from Ryukin pierced the commander's head, killing him instantly, before he could even touch his kunai. Seeing this, the other Otonins quickly looked back at Ryukin, who had another chakra arrow strung and ready to fire and aimed at the Otonins in the room. If you do not wish to end up like your leader, I suggest that you surrender now and not try what he just did. At hearing Ryukin's threat, some of the Otonins did not know what to do. A few of them were even tempted to rush him all at once, believing that he couldn't get them all, but any thought of resisting was quickly set aside. When 4 squads of new Kumo and Yu shinobis arrived next to Ryukin, after which they quickly surrendered. As the Otonins were being taken away as prisoner, a Boltnin with a bear-shaped mask appeared in front of Ryukin. Report! Ordered Ryukin in a commanding tone. Sir, I'm here to report that all of Orochimaru's bases in Ta no Kuni have been taken and his remaining forces have been subdued. Also Naomasa too and his force have taken the capital of Ta no Kuni, with the assistance of Prince Machi and his forces. They also have captured the Ta daimyo, and as of officially now, Ta no Kuni is under our control, reported Bear. Very good, now have our forces moved towards the border between Ta no Kuni and Hai no Kuni, Fire Country, so that we can give Orochimaru and his forces a proper greeting when they return from Konoha, spoke Ryukin. Hi, replied the bear, where he then shunned Shin away, after which Ryukin and the remaining other new Kumo shinobis left the base to continue with the next phase of Naruto's plan. Operation Tidal Wave. Like the other operation, at the same time as the Battle of Konoha, Operation Tidal Wave was about to begin. But unlike the other operations, this wasn't an invasion, this was a strike operation. The operation was led Sunli, the commander of New Kumo's submarine fleet and Aqua Division. The operation was taking place in the Northern Sea, which lay between Tsuchi no Kuni and Kaminari no Kuni. The operation objective was simple: they were to attack all 3 of Iwa's and Tsuchi no Kuni military docks and destroy their fleets, along with the shipbuilding yards. This was in response of the Heavenly Alliance attack on the anti-Konoha coalition during the Battle of Konoha. As with their fleet taken out, IWA would be unable to make any kind invasion or attack on Kaminari no Kuni, when news of their intervention in the Battle of Konoha reached IWA from the retreating IWA forces. As with IWA and Tsuchi no Kuni naval power destroyed, the Northern Sea would be under the complete control of the Heavenly Alliance. Inside her command sub, the swordfish, Sunli, was going over last-minute checkup before the attack began. As soon as she had finished her checkups, a crewman came up to her to report. Sunli Taicho, Captain, all ships in our fleet report that they are ready, along with all Aqua Squad members. Also Fleets 2 and 3 report that they are all ready as well. Very well then, inform all ships and Aqua Squad members that Operation Tidal Wave is a go, responded Sunli, where the crewman nodded and went to inform the other ships and the Aqua Squad members on the radio. Within minutes of the order being given, 10 new Kumo submarines emerged from the water, less than 100 meters away from the enemy dock, where they revealed their hatches to open up their volley guns. After which they let loose a massive bombardment of exploding kunai down on the shipyards, destroying warships under construction or being repaired, along with many hangars that housed ships under construction. At the same as that, Aqua shinobis from the submarines quickly swam towards the docked ships and planted waterproof exploding notes underneath the hull of the ships, where once they were far enough away, they activated the notes, caused them to explode and the ships to sink, as massive holes caused by the explosions appeared, filling the ships with water. The bombardment continued for several minutes, causing massive destruction on the enemy docks. Once the docks had been completely leveled and the ships all sunk, Sunli ordered her fleet of submarines to cease fire and to return underwater, as well as order her Aqua Squad members to return to the submarines. Once the Aqua members returned to the ships, Sunli then gave the order to the other submarines to return back to base. After she gave out her order, a young female Aqua member came up to her and saluted to her. Sunli Taicho, we accomplished and sank all enemy ships, as ordered. Good work, Isaribi, spoke Sunli, where she smiled at the young woman, who was about the same age as her. Isaribi was a friend of Naruto and Anasu, who they had helped save during their travels with their senseis, Mitsuhide and Sayuri, from a former scientist belonging to Orochimaru named Amachi, who had experimented on her and turned her into a humanoid fish. After defeating Amachi, Naruto and the others then brought her to Retsu, who they'd also met earlier on in their travels, and asked her to help Isaribi, which she did, where after some time Retsu was able to cure Isaribi. Although was unable to fully remove everything that Amachi had done, where she could produce gills at her neck at will to breath underwater, as well as make her feet and hands web-like at will, along with being able to move quickly underwater and have scales at will, that helped protect her body. But even with these abilities she was still able to remain in more human-like form, and no longer changed in her Kaima form. After being cured, Isaribi stayed with Retsu and traveled with her and became her assistant, hoping to repay Retsu for helping her. When Naruto became Raikage, she joined New Kumo along with Retsu, where she was finally able to find acceptance, and even eventually married Anasu, who like Naruto was required to marry multiple times, since he was the last holder of his clan's bloodline. She was also asked by Naruto later on if she would be willing to join Aqua, where her skills and abilities would be of great value, which she agreed to and became Sunli's second in command in the Aqua division. After Sunli had congratulated Isaribi for her good work, another crewman appeared next to them, where he then spoke. Sunli Taicho, I just received word for the other submarine fleets at the remaining other enemy dock. They report that they have all succeeded in destroying the other 2 remaining docks and the fleets stationed there, with the exception of a few ships that went out on patrol when they attack, but adding with the results with our own attack, with the others. We can confirm that we achieved 97% of our target objectives. Very good, inform all other ships to return to base, ordered Sunli, after which the crewman nodded and went to give out Sunli orders to the rest of the crew, where the submarine fleet sailed back to their base. 3 days after the Battle of Konoha, with Orochimaru currently running through the forest of Hainokuni, the former White Snake of Konoha was racing back to Odo, along with his right-hand man Kabuto, along with his remaining followers. Out of his entire force that he sent to invade Konoha, only about 10% of his original force had managed to escape Konoha and avoid being captured or killed. As Orochimaru ran, he went over what had happened and what he had seen only a few days ago. As he thought about the events at the Battle of Konoha, he still tried to figure how his plan failed so miserably. As it had been perfect, he had thought of everything except for one miserable brat, who just wouldn't die. When Orochimaru thought of Naruto, he could not help but growl in anger, where a part of him still could not believe that Naruto of all people had become as powerful as he did, let alone that he would possess the power of the legendary Ramberka, Stormbreaker, limit. He also could not believe how much of the Kyuubi's power that he could control. Even though he had not seen it, He and Kabuto had felt Naruto using its power when they were escaping the village, which didn't make Orochimaru feel any better. In fact, it made him feel worse, as he knew that Naruto had not used all of the Kyuubi's power. Blast that cursed brat, I make him pay dearly for interfering with my plans again, thought Orochimaru, as he and his remaining forces crossed the border between Ta no Kuni and Hai no Kuni. But soon after crossing the border, several Otonins in the front were blown apart by a large explosion. At the same time as well, several more Otonins were killed when several arrows made out of chakra pierced their chest. Also as well, several dozen kunais and jutsus were being fired from all directions at the Oto force. What is going on? Thought Orochimaru, where he saw his already decimated force being attacked again by unknown force. His question was soon answered, when 200 new Kumo shinobis appeared and surrounded them, where he attacked Orochimaru forces. Within minutes Orochimaru forces were being picked apart by the new Kumo shinobis. New Kumo, but how? Thought Orochimaru in surprise, as he knew that he was in his own territory now and couldn't understand what the new Kumo shinobis were doing here. Orochimaru-sama! Cried Kabuto, as he disabled a new Kumo Chunin and raced towards his master. Orochimaru-sama, we must escape while we still can, we cannot win here. Orochimaru of course knew Kabuto was right, but it didn't mean he liked it. What the blazes happened here? Cried Orochimaru in frustration. I would believe that would already be obvious, spoke Ryukin, as he appeared with several Boltonins who surrounded Orochimaru and Kabuto. Who the devil are you? Asked Orochimaru angrily. The person who helped conquer your country, spoke Ryukin as he then extended his bow glove and charged a chakra arrow into his bow and aimed it at Orochimaru's head. What? Cried the snake Sannin in disbelief, as he did not believe what he just heard. Ryukin of course ignored Orochimaru's question, as he knew the snake Sannin heard him, where he just aimed his chakra arrow at Orochimaru's head and prepared to fire it. You will surrender now, Orochimaru, or you will die where you stand now, spoke Ryukin, with a calm, cool, deadly tone of voice, while at the same time the Boltonins took out their katanas and channeled their lightning chakra through them, and prepared to attack. Ku, I think not, said Orochimaru with a sinister-looking smirk, where he and Kabuto charged straight at Ryukin, who quickly fired several chakra arrows and hit them, both between the eyes. But instead of falling dead, both turned into mud, revealing that they were Tsuchi Bunshin, earth clones, where the real Kabuto and Orochimaru used Hirubansho, Boku no Jutsu, Leech All Creation, attack prevention technique to merge with the ground and sank into it to escape. Although as he did, he silently swore to himself that he would never lose to Naruto or the Heavenly Alliance again, and that he would make Naruto pay severely for defeating him again. Seeing that Orochimaru and Kabuto escaped, Ryukin narrowed his eyes with annoyance, but quickly got over it, where a new Kumo Jonin then appeared next to him. Sir, I like to report that we have eliminated over half the enemy remaining force and captured the other remaining half, spoke the Jonin. Very good, send word to the Raikage in Konoha and Lady Kicho in New Kumo that we have succeeded in all our objectives, spoke Ryukin as he pushed his glasses back up, where the Jonin nodded and quickly left, after which Ryukin ordered the new Kumo forces to burn the dead bodies of the dead Otonins, and to then head back to Orochimaru's main base and bring the prisoners with them. Konoha, 2 weeks later, 2 weeks after the great battle, the village was now busy with activating, where the people and the shinobis there were helping in clearing out the rubble from destroyed buildings, as well as cleaning out the leftover weapons that had been dropped or broken from the battle and making repairs to buildings that could be salvaged. But even with all of this, Konoha was in pretty bad shape, worse even from the Suna and Oto invasion 10 years ago. 4 days after the battle, the civilians, along with the other population of Konoha, were informed that the enemy had been defeated and that they could return to the village. Naturally, many of families and loved ones were overjoyed when they were reunited with their loved ones, while others cried at hearing how their loved had been killed in battle by the enemy. Among these happy reunions was Lee and Yakumo being reunited with their daughter Fuku, although even happy moments like that, they were joined by sadness, as Yakumo uncle Unkai had been killed during the battle. Even though Yakumo was not very close to her uncle, especially given the fact that he was one of those who supported in having her killed when she didn't have control of her power, it didn't mean that she didn't at least care about him, as he was her uncle after all. Other happy reunions were of Shikamaru, Choji, Shino, being reunited with their own wives, as well as Anko, Irika and Kurenai being reunited with their children, Hiruzen and Aiko. But like with Yakumo, this was marked with sadness as Niji fiancé, a young Hyuga branch girl, was badly wounded in the battle, but thanks to Tsunade she was no threat of dying, but was in a coma for the time being. Naturally, when the populace saw the new Kumo shinobis, along with the new Kumo airships, which had landed in the crater that Naruto created outside the village when he used his Inazuma lightning flash, as well as heard how new Kumo had arrived and helped the Konoha defenders defeat the enemy forces, many people cheered the new Kumo forces and even sang the Raikage's praises for saving them. But the people's opinion of the Raikage quickly turned when they learned that Naruto was the Raikage. When the civilian population heard this, they couldn't believe that the demon brat was still alive and was the Raikage of new Kumo of all people. As expected, people turned against Naruto for his part in the destruction of their village, as because of the overall battle over 3/4 of Konoha was in ruins now, where most people were forced to live in tents now outside the village. Also, when word spread that Naruto was the Yandame's son, it caused even greater turmoil, as many of those who hated Naruto refused to believe that the demon brat was the son of their hero and greatest Hokage. When people heard about Naruto, several large and angry mobs gathered at the hospital, wanting to kill the demon, while it was still weak and unable to defend himself. Naturally, the storm, shock, bolt shinobis, as well as several other new Kumo shinobis blocked their path from entering the hospital grounds. Luckily though, before things could get out of hand, two large groups made up of members of the Hyuga clan and the Sarutobi clan, and led by their respected clan heads, arrived at the scene. After which Hinata and Konohamaru quickly took charge of the situation and ordered the mob to disperse and leave. Naturally, most people in the mob refused, but they quickly changed their minds after one man stepped forward saying he was going to kill the demon once and for all. But before any of the new Kumo shinobis could stop him, Hinata appeared in front of the man and delivered her Dejiki Sendo, Death Strike, right into the man's chest, breaking his breastbone and all 24 of his ribs and sending him flying into a large wall directly behind him and making a large dent in it when he hit it. After doing this, Hinata then stated that if anyone tried to hurt Naruto, then they would have to deal with the Hyuga clan and that she would breaking every bone in their bodies if anyone tried to hurt Naruto. Konohamaru also backed up her, where he stated that not only would they have to deal with Hinata and her clan, but also him and his clan. When the mob saw that they were up against not only the new Kumo shinobis, but also the Hyuga clan and the Sarutobi clan, along with their clan heads, who were among the strongest shinobis in Konoha, the mob quickly realized that they could not win, and so left. Another big event was after Tsunade had informed the council members about Naruto, the ones who had not taken part in the battle, and who had went with the civilians when they left the village. When the council members heard that Naruto was alive and was the Raikage, they were both shocked and furious at the same time. The shinobi elders were especially surprised when they heard this, where Hamura was shocked that Naruto was the Raikage of all people, yet slightly relieved and happy that Naruto was alive. Koharu and Danzo, on the other hand, were not only shocked, but angry and worried, as Naruto was now not only alive, but was the leader of another foreign shinobi village. This was of course the worst fear of any shinobi village, to have their Jinchuriki join another shinobi village. This now made Naruto probably the greatest threat to Konoha and them to ever exist, as combined the power of the Kyuubi, along with Naruto's two bloodlines, his Sage mode, as well as the amount of power he showed when faced Orochimaru and the other coalition leaders, as well as the Sword of Tengu. It made Naruto more dangerous than Madara or even the Kyuubi itself, as the Kyuubi was at least a wild beast that didn't know how to use its power properly. Unlike Naruto, who did, and unlike Madara, when he revolted against the Shodaime, Naruto didn't stand alone, as he had the backing of a powerful nation, since when Madara revolted he had no one, not even his own clan, to back him up. Later on, about 14 young naive Konoha Chunins, whose heads were still full with words like duty and honor, stormed the hospital and the room that the unconscious Naruto was staying in after his battle. The Chunins in question had orders to arrest Naruto on trumped-up charges, such as the destruction of a third of Konoha and breaking his banishment. Normally the storm means that we're guarding Naruto along with Naruto's commanding officers would have stopped the Chunins. But they did not and allowed the Chunins to enter Naruto's room, as ever since Naruto's battle with Orochimaru, the other leaders of the anti-Konoha coalition and the 4 Hokages, Naruto wives, the ones who came with him, who were in the room with Naruto, had been in a bad mood. The reason for this was because Naruto wives were furious at how he had ordered them not to help him in his battle, and just sit back and watch him nearly get himself killed. Their moods got even worse over time, as they waited for Naruto to wake up, as none of them could give out to him or yell at him for being such as baka. The guards and the others of course knew all this and so decided let the Chunins by, hence when the 14 Chunins burst into Naruto's room stating that they were arresting Naruto. The girls defended their husband and at the same time, were able to release their pent-up anger on the foolish Chunins. Needless to say, when Naruto's wives were finished with them, the 14 Chunins were in a worse state than any of the wounded, currently in the hospital. After the Chunins were dealt with, Zhuge Liang had Tsunade call a council meeting, where he then informed them that there would be severe repercussions for what they did, and if Konoha did something like that again, it would be seen as a declaration of war on New Kumo and the Heavenly Alliance, where considering that New Kumo shinobis were guarding most of Konoha. Not to mention that most of Konoha's shinobis were in no shape or condition to fight, a battle with New Kumo, let alone the Heavenly Alliance, wasn't in the best interest of Konoha right now. Tsunade of course assured Zhuge Liang that the Chunins acted without her orders or her approval, where she then immediately ran an investigation what happened. Later on she learned that the Chunins had been acting on the orders of civilian council member Hojo Akira, who convinced the naive young Chunins that having Naruto arrested was in the best interest of Konoha, as Akira believed that with Naruto under their custody, New Kumo and the Heavenly Alliance wouldn't dare do anything against them. Sadly though for Akira, when Tsunade found out the truth, she had him arrested for usurping the Hokage's authority, as only the Hokage could order the Konoha shinobis. She also had Akira removed from his position on the council and seized all his assets, and had him placed in prison for what he did. Both Danzo and Koharu surprisingly supported Tsunade's decision, as even though it would weaken them on the council, both agreed that what Akira did was foolish, as they knew that arresting a ruling Kage from another village, especially one as powerful as New Kumo, would earn the wrath of the New Kumo shinobis, along with Naruto's commanders, where they would attack Konoha in an attempt to rescue Naruto and destroy Konoha in the process. But even after that incident, things in Konoha did not calm down, as there was still a great deal of unrest in the village, where several fights broke out between the New Kumo ninjas and some Konoha ninjas, when some Konoha ninjas insulted Naruto. Also there were several disputes between the New Kumo shinobis and some civilians, where the civilians would antagonize the New Kumo shinobis by insulting Naruto or throwing this at them, along with other things. This would then normally result in the New Kumo shinobis beating said civilians up. Seeing what was happening, both Zhuge Liang and Tsunade decided to regain control of their forces and people, before more pointless fights broke out between both sides. Tsunade was able to regain order by declaring martial law, although due to most of her forces being in no condition to be on duty, as most Konoha's remaining shinobis were hospitalized due to injuries that they suffered from battle. Tsunade had to rely on Suna and New Kumo's shinobis to help maintain and enforce martial law. She also ordered her remaining on-duty shinobis to not antagonize the New Kumo shinobi, since if they did, they would find themselves demoted and spending some time in the dentation cells, along with the other prisoners. Zhuge Liang in turn ordered that all New Kumo shinobis to refrain from fighting with the Konoha shinobis, unless they physically attacked them. He also ordered them not to respond to the civilians' remarks or their antagonizing tactics, and ordered them to restrain the civilians if they were found breaking curfew or attack them and do nothing more than that. The New Kumo shinobis of course did what they were told, but whenever they did restrain civilians that threw things at them or resisted them, when the New Kumo shinobis found them breaking curfew, they restrained the civilians a lot more forcefully than was needed, where they would get a few bruises here or there from being restrained by the New Kumo shinobis. But even with all these measures taken, there were still a few fights that broke out between the New Kumo shinobis and the Konoha people and some shinobis over how they felt towards Naruto. With the Konoha Council, as of now the clearing out of the village debris is the main focus. The repairs to the remaining buildings are continuing slowly. Although thankfully food and water supplies have not been effective and there is no shortage, spoke Tsunade, as she finished going over the status of the village. That is all well and good, Hokage-sama, but I believe there is a more important matter at hand, spoke Amako Taichi. And what would this matter be, Council Member Taichi? Asked Tsunade, although she already knew what he meant, as it was obvious. You know who I'm referring to, Hokage-sama. We need to do something about that thing at the hospital, said Taichi. That thing that you're referring to is the Raikage of New Kumo and is the one who helped save this village, spoke the annoyed female Hokage, as she could not help but be disgusted at how ungrateful people like Taichi were towards Naruto and New Kumo. But look at what he did to our village! Almost a third of the damage that was done to the village was because of him, spoke Taichi. Not only that, but with Orochimaru and his allies defeated, who to say that the demon and its followers won't turn on us once it have been healed with, spoke Asehida. If he wanted to do that, he and his forces would have attacked us at the same time that they attacked Orochimaru and his allies, or even waited till Orochimaru and his allies had killed us all, spoke Hana, as like Tsunade, she was getting tired of these pointless arguments. Maybe he wanted to use us to help him defeat Orochimaru and his allies, where after we defeated them and he recovered and we led our guard, he will turn on us, spoke Ashikaga Shin. TCH, you should think before you speak, council member, because if you did you wouldn't say such stupid and troublesome things like that. Especially if it makes no sense, as why would they even bother doing something like that? When they don't need to, as we're already weak as it is from the battle, and it would be pointless to be doing something like that, as they could easily destroy us now if they wanted to. It would have been a lot easier to simply attack and kill us all, when they attacked Orochimaru and his allies, instead of doing all of this, spoke Shikaku. But even still, we should capture him, now, while he's weakened and we've the chance, spoke Hishia. And look how well that turned out for Akira, when he sent those idiot Chunins to arrest the Raikage on those bogus charges, said Konohamaru with a sneer. He destroyed a third of our village and he broke his banishment, we're in our right, responded Shin. He's a freaking Kagen now, you idiot, roared Tsunade. Which gives him automatic diplomatic immunity to all charges. As for the village, it was a result of his battle with the 4 revived Hokages, Orochimaru and his allies, and I would rather have most of the village destroyed than have it destroyed entirely. Although I agree that arresting the Raikage is foolish, Council Member Shin's and the other members' fears are not unfounded, as the Raikage would most likely have ill will towards us, spoke Danzo. And whose fault would that be, Danzo-san? Spoke Hinata as glared coldly at Danzo and the other members of the council who were each somehow involved in Naruto's banishment. That does not matter now, what matters is how we deal with the situation now, spoke Koharu. Simple, we should kill him, spoke Hishia. Like hell, you will, roared Konohamaru with anger, as he was furious at what he was hearing and was tempted to beat the living hell out of Hishia for saying it. I agree as well, as killing the Raikage would be foolish and only bring down the wrath of New Kumo and the Heavenly Alliance down on our village, spoke Aburame Shibi. At hearing this, even Danzo and Koharu had to agree, although Danzo himself had thought about having Naruto killed, by having one of his operatives disguise as a nurse or doctor and kill Naruto and make it look like his body gave out from exhaustion. Unfortunately for Danzo, that idea wouldn't work, as the New Kumo shinobis wouldn't allow any non-New Kumo medic to go near Naruto. Even Tsunade herself was refused access to enter, to see or check in on Naruto. Not to mention Naruto was under constant guard 24/7, where his wives and bodyguards were in his room at all times and storm means were guarding all entrance points. This made it impossible to come even close to Naruto in any way, without New Kumo shinobis watching them closely. But we need to do something, cried Taichi. That's enough, roared Tsunade, as she slammed her fist onto the new council table, cracking it. I won't hear any more of this. When my grandfather and great-uncle were brought back by Orochimaru, they spoke how ashamed they were at us. The Yondaime himself was even disgusted at how we treated his son, and you all wanted to shame ourselves even further by having him killed or imprisoned, because you're all afraid at what he might do, cried Tsunade. We're only thinking of what's best for Konoha, Tsunade, responded Koharu. Tisk, if that was the case, then you would have never banished Naruto in the first place and followed the Yondaime wish and regarded Naruto as the hero that he was, instead of beating him and treating him as an outcast. As if we had, it would most likely be Konoha instead of Kumo that would be flourishing, spoke Tsunade. That is conjecture at the very best, Hokage-san, spoke Sasuke. Maybe, but we would have been in a hell of a lot better situation than we are in now, replied Tsunade as she narrowed her eyes. Hence there will be no more arguments about this, and if I find out that there are any more attempts on Naruto's life or attempts to hold him against his will by anyone, I will personally skin them alive and have their hide pinned on my wall. Is that clear? Well, now, I'm glad to see that there are at least still some people with here some brains and common sense, spoke Jiraiya, who was sitting on the windowsill, watching Tsunade and the council argue amongst themselves. Jiraiya! Spoke Tsunade in surprise at seeing her former teammate, who disappeared from the village 2 days after the Battle of Konoha. Where the hell have you been? Aw, Haim, you miss me, I'm touched, spoke Jiraiya, with a cheesy grin. Cut the act, Jiraiya, now tell me where the hell have you been? Asked the annoyed Hokage. Okay, Haim, yesh. You really need to lighten up a bit, or else you've even more wrinkles on you than you already have now, said Jiraiya with a smirk, when he saw Tsunade glare at him angrily. But after which, he then quickly became serious. Okay, for the past few days I have traveling around, gathering intel on the other villages in case some of the smaller villages decided to make a move on us, in our weakened condition. As well as gathering intel on what's going on with Oto, Kiri Iwa and the others, answered Jiraiya. So has anything happened that we should be concerned about? Asked Inoichi. A lot actually, replied Jiraiya, gaining everyone's attention, where he then continued. Both Kiri and Oto, along with their home countries Ta no Kuni and Mizu no Kuni, have been conquered. At hearing this, the entire room gasped in shock. Conquered? By who? Asked a surprised Hamura. By the Heavenly Alliance. It seems that when Naruto and his forces were helping us deal with Orochimaru and his coalition, he had his other forces launched a coordinated invasion on both villages and their host countries, replied Jiraiya. At hearing this, Tsunade and the council were stunned at hearing that two of their enemies along with their home country had just been conquered by Naruto's alliance. When exactly did they fall, Jiraiya? Asked Tsunade. Both invasions began at the same time as our battle with Orochimaru's coalition, where Oto and Ta no Kuni fell within 2 days along with Kiri, while Mizu no Kuni fell on the third, answered Jiraiya, shocking everyone again. But how could the Heavenly Alliance conquer two shinobi villages and their host countries within just a few days? Even if they had surprise on their side, they shouldn't have conquered both countries so easily and quickly, spoke the ANBU commander. Well, it seems that Naruto has been planning these invasions for several months or more, because you see he had help from the rebel factions in Mizu no Kuni and Ta no Kuni. In Mizu no Kuni he launched a two-pronged invasion of Mizu no Kuni, from the north and the south. In the north, an armada of 700 ships from New Kumogakure, Yukigakure, Shimo no Kuni, Shimagakure, Yuki/Haru no Kuni, Yu no Kuni and Kaminari no Kuni, led by 4 fortress ships belonged to Yuki/Haru no Kuni and Yukigakure, and Naruto's command ship, the same one that he picked up Kuriani and her team in, a while back. There they destroyed Kiri's remaining fleet stationed there and its fortress in the north in one single go. At the same time as that, the second invasion, an armada numbering about 500 ships from New Kumo, Kaminari no Kuni and Cha no Kuni, Suki no Kuni, Umi no Kuni and Getsugakure. There they encountered one of Mizu no Kuni's fleets patrolling their southern shores, where all 100 ships were destroyed by the 4 fortress ships from Kaminari no Kuni, which were leading the armada, in just a few minutes. Once both armadas landed with their invasion forces, they quickly moved through the country, not giving the Mizu no Kuni forces or the remaining Kiri forces a chance to defend themselves. At the same time as the invasions, the rebel factions worked together to disrupt communication between the Kiri and Mizu no Kuni forces, as well as attack several of their bases, fortresses and castles at once. Also, a revolt by the civilian population erupted in Kiri, supported by the shinobi rebel factions, where by the second day, with the help of the shinobis of the Heavenly Alliance, Kiri fell and was quickly followed up by Mizu no Kuni itself. As it seems, on the third day after the invasion, the Usuji samurai clan of Mizu no Kuni secretly joined with the rebel factions and took over the capital, with no bloodshed, and handed it over to the Heavenly Alliance army when they arrived. The Mizu daimyo himself was killed, the Usuji clan head Kenshin, the famed Senso no Kami, where they then replaced Mizu daimyo with his younger cousin, spoke Jiraiya, where he continued on before anyone could interrupt him. Also at the same time, Ta no Kuni was invaded by 2 separate armies belonging to New Kumo, Yugakure, Kaminari no Kuni from Yu no Kuni, where with the help of the Fuma clan, along with the other rebel clans native to Ta no Kuni, Naruto forces knew the locations of all of Orochimaru's bases in Ta no Kuni and took them over without much trouble. Along with that, his forces easily took over Ta no Kuni itself with the help of the Ta daimyo's nephew Prince Machi and his allies, whereas of now Prince Machi is the new ruler of Ta no Kuni and will be crowned the new daimyo of Ta no Kuni next week, said Jiraiya. After hearing all this, there was much worried muttering among the council members, as they didn't know what this exactly meant for Konoha, as some feared that Naruto was planning to conquer Konoha next. Is there anything else that happened involving the Heavenly Alliance? Asked Tsunade. Plenty, as there was another attack, when New Kumo launched 3 separate, simultaneous amphibious assaults on Tsuchi no Kuni and Iwa's 3 major military docks, where they destroyed them and their fleets in one go. Also as well Takigakure, Hidden Waterfall, and Hashigakure, Hidden Star, launched a large-scale raid on Kusagakure, Hidden Grass, where they attacked the village and did considerable amount of damage to it. The most notable being that Kusa research lab for all their poisons and toxins was completely destroyed before the Hoshi and Taki shinobis left the village, spoke Jiraiya. But why didn't they invade them, as if they invaded both Mizu no Kuni and Ta no Kuni along with their shinobi villages? Surely they could have taken over Tsuchi no Kuni and Kusa no Kuni along with their shinobis' villages, spoke Shin. My guess would be unlike them. There are no rebel factions fighting against the ruling government, where the Heavenly Alliance would have to garrison a large army there to keep control of the countries and village, upon which they would have to fight constant rebellions, as the people would resent them, especially IWA. As once they learn Naruto's full heritage you can beat, they won't be happy at being conquered by the Heavenly Alliance, which is led by the Yondaime Hokage's son. Where unlike Ta no Kuni and Mizu no Kuni, or their shinobi villages, he helped remove the corrupt tyrannical rules of Orochimaru, the Mizu daimyo, and the Godaime Mizukage. Hence Naruto and the Heavenly Alliance are seen as liberators, where the majority of the people will favor them, and the new ruling parties will be pro-Heavenly Alliance and owe it and Naruto a big favor, meaning the Heavenly Alliance influence will grow, as both countries and villages will rely a lot on the Heavenly Alliance to recover economically, financially, and militarily. By which point it'd be highly likely that they will join or ally themselves with the Heavenly Alliance, increasing its strength even further, spoke Jiraiya. As he had to admit, Naruto had got a lot smarter in the last 10 years, as he had basically defeated 2 of major enemies and turned them into his new allies by helping to put in new friendlier ruling groups. They expanded their borders and control, while we were fighting for our lives, stated Danzo angrily, as like most people on the council he knew that this would put Konoha at a greater disadvantage, while putting New Kumo and the Heavenly Alliance at an even greater advantage. But won't the Heavenly Alliance have trouble keeping control of the countries and villages from the returning Kiri and Oto forces, as I don't think Orochimaru would simply allow the Heavenly Alliance to take control of his own country. Also there would most likely be many high-ranking Kiri shinobis in the retreating army, who would take control of the Kiri army and use it to try and take control of Kiri and Mizu no Kuni, spoke Yakumo. Not going to happen, as after taking control of Oto and Ta no Kuni, the shinobis of the Heavenly Alliance ambushed Orochimaru and his forces when they crossed the border. Unfortunately Orochimaru and Kabuto escaped again, but all their remaining forces that survived the battle were captured or wiped out by the Alliance shinobis. The Kiri forces that retreated were all captured as well, along with the Kiri armada off the coast of Hai no Kuni, as it seems that Naruto took back his clan's former homeland Yuzu no Kuni, Whirlpool Country, and built a secret naval base there, where he then had a fleet of ships belonging to Kaminari no Kuni and New Kumo, along with 3 more fortress ships belonging to New Kumo stationed and hidden there. So that when the Kiri armada landed with the Kiri invasion force, the New Kumo and Kaminari no Kuni fleet launched and surrounded the Kiri armada, with their backs against the beachhead, giving them no choice but to surrender, where when the retreating Kiri forces arrived at the beachhead, they were also surrounded by the forces Naruto had stationed in Nami no Kuni, Wave Country, who came up from behind them and surrounded them, where with their armada captured and being surrounded and with their Kage dead, they surrendered without a fight, spoke Jiraiya. So the Heavenly Alliance really does have more of those fortress ships and those underwater ships, spoke Inoichi. 12 fortress ships and 30 of those submarines to be precise, and that is what we know of. For all we know they could have more of those fortress ships and submarines, spoke Jiraiya, which didn't settle the council concerns about the Heavenly Alliance, as the idea of the Heavenly Alliance having even more of those underwater ships and fortress ships than they had now was nerve-wracking to say the least. Regardless, it seems that the Raikage has gotten rid of most our enemies for us, spoke the ANBU commander. Some of them, yeah. But if you think Orochimaru finished, then you be wrong, even though Ta no Kuni has fallen along with all the Oto bases there. Orochimaru's organization still exists, as he has other bases in other countries. The Hanya clan and Kusa won't bother us for a long while, as the Hanya clan took heavy losses in the battle, while Kusa forces along with the village itself took equally heavy losses, where the village suffered heavy damage and lost their poison research lab. Kiri is gone with it being conquered by the Heavenly Alliance, although IWA is still a threat, as even though they took heavy losses their military strength is still strong, as they didn't commit their full military strength to the battle. Hence they're still a threat, although they will most likely consolidate their defenses and position for a while after they elect a new Tsuchikage. Spoke Jiraiya. So for now we're safe. Spoke Konohamaru. For now at least. Replied Jiraiya. But what about the demon? Spoke Taichi. At hearing this, Jiraiya narrowed his eyes as he was getting pretty sick of dealing with these bigots on the council. If you got any sense whatsoever, you do exactly what she said and leave the kid alone, especially if don't want to have all hell coming down on us. And I don't mean that just because he is the leader of New Kumo and the Heavenly Alliance. Then what do you mean that, Jiraiya-sama? Asked Shibi. What I mean is that Naruto is almost worshipped in New Kumo and in Kaminari no Kuni, as he is the hero of both the country and the village, as he led the rebels to victory over the Godame Raikage. He rebuilt their village and restored the country and reunited the two sides after the civil war and formed the Heavenly Alliance. He defended them when he destroyed the Kiri and Mizu no Kuni armada, when it arrived near the end of the civil war, and made New Kumo and Kaminari no Kuni stronger than they ever have been in their history. Hell, they're even calling his rule the age of the Rokudame Raikage, the golden age of New Kumo and Kaminari no Kuni. Hence, if anything were to happen to Naruto, they would instantly blame us, and every single shinobi, samurai and soldier in New Kumo and Kaminari no Kuni would come down like a tidal wave of fury on us and would burn the village to the ground, where if they don't get us, then you can beat your ass, that the other countries and shinobi villages that regard Naruto as a hero will. And I need not tell you that all those countries and villages are all with the Heaven Alliance, or are allied with it. Spoke Jiraiya. At hearing this, the civilian member grumbled and growled, as they knew that what Jiraiya said was true, as given their current state the Heavenly Alliance would easily destroy Konoha. Jiraiya, have you contacted the Toads yet and asked them why they lied to you about Naruto being alive? Asked Tsunade. No, I haven't, as I haven't had time to make contact with any of them. Replied Jiraiya, as he decided that he might as well get answer now, where he then got off the windowsill and bit his finger and summoned a large amount of his chakra and cried, Kuchios no Jutsu, summoning technique. After which there was a small puff of smoke, where once it dissipated a small elder-like toad carrying a small wooden cane and where a small gray cloak appeared. So Jiraiya-chan, you finally decided to summon me. I'm surprised you didn't summon me sooner. Then you know why I summon you here, Pa? Asked Jiraiya. Of course you summoned me here, because you want to know why we lied to you about Naruto-chan being alive. Replied Fukusaku. How do you know? Asked the surprised Jiraiya. Gambunta and Gamakichi told me about the battle and how Naruto-chan finally revealed himself to all of you. Spoke Fukusaku. So why did you lie to me about not being able to reverse summon Naruto and telling me later on that he was dead? Asked Jiraiya. Because he asked us to? Answered Fukusaku. He asked you to? Repeated Tsunade in disbelief. Yes, after he was discovered by Mitsuhide and Sayuri and got rid of the chakra-suppressing seal and the curse seal that prevented him from talking about Konoha. He summoned me and asked me not to reverse summon him, when you asked me. He also asked me later to tell you that he was dead after his little run-in with the Akatsuki. Spoke Fukusaku. But why did you agree, Pa? I'm his godfather. I had a right to know where he was and if he was alive or dead, OW. Spoke Jiraiya, before he cried out in pain, when Fukusaku smacked him on the head with his cane. What the hell was that for, OW? Cried Jiraiya, before he was hit on the head again by Fukusaku with his cane. You know full well what was that for. You call yourself his godfather, when you don't even know the meaning of the word. After you left Naruto-chan to fend for himself for 12 years, I thought I taught you better than that. Spoke Fukusaku angrily at his former pupil. Upon hearing this, Jiraiya flinched, at hearing his former teacher scold him like he did when he was pupil. Pa, you know that I'm not the settled-down type and I was never exactly the parental role model. I wouldn't have made a good parent for the kid. You could have at least tried to raise him, or at the very least have gone to visit him and check on him every once in a while, instead of just leaving him and never once going to see him. You often told me that Minato was like a son to you, meaning that Naruto was like a grandson, and yet you never even once went to see him. Rounded Fukusaku furiously. At this, Jiraiya lowered his head in shame, as he knew that Fukusaku was right. Quite frankly, when we heard from Naruto-chan everything that happened to him over the years, many of the toads along with Ma and myself were tempted to come to this village and flatten it, or at the very least sever all ties, along with you, Jiraiya. Spoke Fukusaku. as he was indeed ashamed at how Jiraiya tossed aside his reasonability as Naruto's godfather and surrogate grandson. Naturally, when Jiraiya heard this, he was shocked. "You're annulling my contract?" spoke Jiraiya, with surprise. "I said we were tempted, but if it wasn't for the many years of you as our summoner and our past friendships, we would," said Fusaku, after which turned to face Tsunade and the council. "Also, as of this moment, the Toad's alliance with Konoha is annulled, although Jiraiya can still summon us, and we will fight by him. But as far as we're concerned, Konoha stands alone, even if Jiraiya summons us to defend Konoha. We'll never defend it ever again, nor will we be used to fight against Naruto-chan or New Kumo and the Heavenly Alliance, as we will not be used to fight against one of our own summoners," spoke Fusaku. "You're abandoning us?" said Shin in shock, as the Toads were among Konoha's greatest defenders and allies. "That is what I basically said, as we Toads do not take well to our summoners or the children of a former summoners being wrongfully persecuted and beaten, and it no more different than when this village abandoned Naruto-chan," spoke the elder Toad sage, after which he then said his goodbyes to Jiraiya and then left. Soon after getting over the shock of the Toads turning their backs on them, Tsunade called the council meeting to an end, where all the council members soon left, where within the next few hours, everyone in Konoha would know what Naruto and the Heavenly Alliance had done. With Naruto was on his bed unconscious in a private room, with his wife sitting in the room in various places, with storm shinobis standing guard outside his room and on the windows, which were all covered so that no one could see in. Naruto was currently in a drug-induced sleep, so that his body could rest properly and regain his strength, as physically he was fine, thanks to his healing bloodline. But chakra-wise he just about out of it when arrived in the hospital. After examining him, Retsu quickly placed Naruto in a drug-induced sleep, as she knew that once Naruto woke up, he wouldn't sit still and wait till he had fully recovered. The guards outside Naruto's room, of course, were given strict order not to let anyone in, unless they were Naruto's commanders or Retsu, and even then they had to give certain passwords to be allowed in, so to confirm their identity. Not even Hinata, Konohamaru, Tsunade, Iruka, Jiraiya, Gaara or any of the Konoha 11 were allowed enter into Naruto's room. After about 2 weeks of sleeping, Retsu decided that Naruto's body had rested enough, although if he had been a normal person, after using the amount of chakra that he used in his battle, Naruto would have been out of action for 2 months instead of 2 weeks. After Retsu had stopped giving Naruto drugs to keep him asleep, he soon woke up with a groan. When the girls in the room heard Naruto groan, they quickly went up to him, surrounded his bed. When Naruto slowly opened his eyes, he saw all his wives, the ones that came with him, surrounding him with concerned looks on their faces, where he smiled and groaned a bit before he spoke. "Ugh, I must have died and gone to heaven, as I'm seeing 8 beautiful angels before me. Can the sweet-talk lover boy, you not going to get out of this one?" spoke Soifin with a frown. Although if one looked fairly carefully they would have seen a small twitch of a smile for a split second, showing that she was happy that Naruto was alive and safe. After Soifin said this, Yujito then bonked Naruto hard on his head, making Naruto cry out in pain. "Ow! What was that for?" cried Naruto as he held his head in pain from when Yujito hit him. "For being such a baka, and ordering us to stay back and watch you fight and not help you," spoke Yujito angrily, as she had been worried sick at what would happen to Naruto. "But I told you why I did it, it was personal from me, as it was something I needed to do by myself," replied Naruto. "That still doesn't give you the right to order us not to help us. We know full well that you had Juga Liang keeps us back, even when it looked like you were going to lose," replied Yujito, where Naruto cringed knowing he was busted. "What you did, Naruto, was inconsiderate and selfish, as what if you had been killed? While we were held back and watched you die, did you ever think how we would feel, if that happened? Did you ever consider our feelings when you ordered us to stay back and watch?" berated Soifin, as it showed how angry she was with Naruto, and what he did. At hearing this, Naruto cringed again, as he knew Soifin was right, as he had been inconsiderate towards the girls' feelings, and it was selfish of him to force the girls to sit back and watch him fight Orochimaru, Kabuto, and the 4 Hokages. "You're right, I'm sorry, it was selfish of me," said Naruto sincerely, as he was sorry, although when he said this, Soifin bonked him on the head. "Ow! What was that for?" "I said I was sorry," cried Naruto as he held his head again in pain. "Sorry not going to be good enough for what you did," spoke Soifin angrily, after which Yujito then bonked Naruto on the head again. "Ow!" cried Naruto again. "Come on, I'm hurt enough as it is, Don't you think that I've been hit enough for one day? Nope, replied Yujito simple as she folded her arms. Girls, maybe you should stop, as I do think Naruto-kun has learned his lesson and he said he was sorry, and we don't want to hurt him any more than he already is. Spoke Takara for. Thank you, Takara-chan, you're the only person that cares what happens to me, you won't let them hurt me anymore. Ow! Whined Naruto like a little kid, before he was then hit on the head by another of his wives. You're too soft on him, Takara, you've always been too soft on him, he needs to learn that when he acts like this, there are consequences. Spoke Tomo, 5, with an annoyed frown. Come on girls, you all know he's sorry. Besides, he wouldn't be our Naruto-kun if he didn't act like this from time to time, and if you kill him. I don't think we could ever find another man like him that can handle and satisfy us as well as he can, said another one of Naruto's wives, Taira, 6, who stood behind Naruto's bed, wrapped her arms around Naruto's head, brought it up so that it would rest on her impressive D-cup bosom. Besides, I'm sure we can have him make it up to yous later on, when we get home, continued Taira, with a seductive smile, as she held Naruto's head closer to her chest, which caused the girls to blush red at her meaning and for a drop of blood to bleed from Naruto's nose. Taira, must you always be so lewd in such matters? Said Okatsu with some annoyance and disgust. Oh come on Okatsu, don't be such a prude, said Taira as she played around with Naruto's hairs with her fingers, as she pushed his head further into her bosom. Yeah, Okatsu, besides you of all people can't judge Taira, considering the things I heard come from your room last month, said Yuffie with a smirk, which caused Okatsu to blush bright red at the mention of that, and Naruto to leak some more blood from his nose. Well, now that you're awake you should eat something, as I'm sure you're hungry after being asleep for so long, and before you ask, no you can't have ramen, spoke Fu with a slight smile, as she saw Naruto get depressed at not getting to eat any ramen. Not long after, there was a knock on the door and Zhuge Liang, Mitsuhide, Sayuri and Killer Bee entered the room. I see that you're awake at last, Naruto-kun, spoke Zhuge Liang. Hey sensei, yeah I'm fine thanks, replied Naruto. We glad to hear that, spoke Mitsuhide. Yeah, although it not surprising considering all number of attentive nurses you've here, spoke Sayuri with saucy smile, making the girls in the room blush a little at her meaning. Yo boss, you look as right as rain, rhymed Killer Bee. Well, I don't know about that, but I'm not too bad, replied Naruto with a smile, before he turned to Zhuge Liang. So how long have I been out? About 2 weeks, replied Zhuge Liang. 2 weeks? Spoke Naruto in surprise. Correct, as Anohana-san kept you under a drug-induced sleep, so to allow your body to rest and fully recover from the amount of chakra loss that you suffered, as when you arrived here you barely had any left, answered Mr. Hyde. Hence why you're a baka, muttered Soifin, which caused several smirks from the others. But after all joking was put aside, everyone quickly became serious. So how did the other operations go? Asked Naruto. Everything went just as we had hoped for. Operations Clean Sweep were a success, as Anasu and the invasion force, along with the rebel factions, were able to capture Mizu no Kuni and Kiri, without too much trouble. Along with that, Kenshin and his clan captured the capital without any bloodshed and killed the Mizu daimyo himself. As for Operation Encampment, our forces from Yuzu no Kuni and Inami no Kuni surrounded and captured the Kiri armada and the retreating Kiri forces, spoke Mitsuhide. What about Operation Judgment? Asked Naruto. Also a success, as we captured Ta no Kuni and all of Orochimaru's bases within 2 days, and our forces were ready for the retreating Oto forces when they crossed the border, where we eliminated half of them and captured the rest, answered Zhuge Liang. And the other operations? Asked Naruto. Operation Tidal Wave was also a success, as Sunli and the 3 submarine fleets caught all 3 docks by surprise and destroyed them and the fleets docked there. According to estimations, we achieved 97% of our targets, said Sayuri, where Naruto nodded, pleased at hearing this, before he turned to Fu to hear her report. Operation Cleanings was also a success, where Shibuki and Sumura forces were able to destroy Kusa's poison research lab and destroy it and deal severe damage to the village itself, although Kusa's defenses were stronger than we expected. Hence they had more trouble than expect, spoke Fu. Hearing all this, Naruto was pleased that everything went as planned, before he turned to Zhuge Liang again and spoke. And what our situation? Well, as planned, we caught the enemy completely off guard. Kiri forces were the first to retreat, for as soon as they felt you powering up, they began to retreat. The Hanya clan and the Kusa forces were the second to retreat, although when you used Futsunushi, Japanese deity of swords and lightning, and cut the outer side of the Hokage monument, you cut off their escape route, where our forces, along with the Konoha and Suna forces, quickly surrounded them and captured the majority of their forces. The IWA forces were the next to retreat, where according to shinobis that were fighting them, some saw a group of IWA shinobis carrying a wounded, but alive Sasuke. Spoke Zhuge Liang. And you guys say, I'm too stubborn to die, muttered Naruto, where the others could not help but agree with him. After which Naruto then asked what they were doing with the captured enemy shinobis. Zhuge Liang then went on to explain that they had taken over the responsibilities of all the Oto and Kiri shinobis prisoners, where they planned to bring the prisoners back to one of their concentration camps and interrogate them, to learn who were true followers of Orochimaru and Shiro and who were simply forced or tricked to follow them. What about Oto forces, Orochimaru, Guren and Kabuto? Asked Naruto. Well, the Oto forces were completely wiped out, where we captured or killed about 90% of them. The remaining 10% were able to somehow escape and made it back to Ta no Kuni borders, although as I said earlier they were then ambushed by forces at Ta no Kuni, answered Okatsu. I was then able to capture Guren, although she was severely wounded from out battle and is currently in a drug-induced coma, spoke Soifun. But what about Orochimaru and Kabuto? Asked Naruto. Regretfully, Orochimaru escaped, with the help of Kabuto, who somehow was able to free himself your paralyzation seal, and as we were distracted from your battle the Yondaime, we believe Kabuto then took him away, answered Zhuge Liang. At hearing this, Naruto frowned. Damn it, I should have killed that son of a bitch when I had the chance, muttered Naruto angrily. Well, if you had let us help you instead of letting your ego getting the better of you, they might not have escaped, spoke Soifun, as she was still angry at Naruto. Soifun, scolded Okatsu. No, she right. I did let my ego and bitterness with the Yondaime and the Sandaime get the better of me, said Naruto, as he knew he needed a cold dose of reality. And how do you feel towards the Yondaime now? Asked Zhuge Liang. I haven't forgiven him if that is what you're asking me, and as far as I'm concerned he is my father in blood only, but I don't really hate him anymore, as he couldn't let me hate him in peace, spoke Naruto with a slight frown. What do you mean by that? Asked Yuffie with a slightly confused look. Before he died again, he told me that he was proud of what I've become, and that he loves no matter how I feel towards him, spoke Naruto with slight frown, although Zhuge Liang smiled a little, as he was glad that Naruto finally rid himself of his hatred towards his father, as he felt that Naruto would never unite the elemental continent and people in a true united alliance, as long as he had hatred in his heart. That was why he agreed to allow Naruto fight his father by himself, as he felt once Naruto fought and defeated his father, like a forest fire that was cornered in one place with no fuel, he would burn out his hatred and finally move past it. But even if Orochimaru escaped, we still accomplished 85% out of objectives here, as we've won a major victory here. Besides, even the most laid out of plans rarely ever goes exactly as planned. Not to mention our casualty rate was much lower than we had thought possible, spoke Zhuge Liang. What was the casualty rate for our forces? Asked Naruto. 5%, 3% being dead and 2% being wounded, replied Zhuge Liang. At this, Naruto closed his eyes, considering that about 2,500 new Kumo shinobis were in action in this battle, which meant that 75 of their shinobis were dead and 50 were wounded. Naruto knew he should be thankful that their losses were so low. He still didn't likely hearing that he led 75 men and women to their deaths. Have their bodies been found? Asked Naruto. Hi, and we have already sent word to their families in New Kumo, so that when we return their families will know, answered Sayuri. Very good, when you have time I like to see the list of their names and photos, replied Naruto, as he felt that the least he could do was know who they were. I send you a list later on, replied Sayuri, where Naruto just nodded before he spoke again. So else anything happened while I was out? Asked Naruto. Well, there have been some disputes and fights between our shinobis and some Konoha shinobis and the civilian population, once your identity was revealed, spoke Taira, where Naruto only scoffed as he wasn't the least bit surprised at that. Also, as you expected, someone on the council gather a group of naive chunins and had them try and arrest you on things like destroying the village and breaking your banishment, spoke Takara. At hearing this, Naruto only scoffed again, as he had indeed expected this as well. After which he then looked up to his wives and smiled. And may I ask what happened those individuals? Oh, we taught them a lesson they won't soon forget, as we taught them the error of their ways, said Yuffie with a smile. After which the Hokage arrested the council member, who ordered them, a council member Akira, and stripped him of his position and confiscated his holdings in the hopes of appeasing us, said Fu. Naruto of course smiled, as he couldn't imagine that to happen to a better person. After which he had the others continue, where they told him how there was still a few fights between some Konoha ninjas and civilian and their shinobis. Along with that, they told him about how a mob gathered at the hospital and tried to get him, but were stopped by some of their shinobis, with the assistance of the Hinata, Konohamaru, and their clans. After hearing this, Naruto planned to thank both of them when he saw them. The others then went on to tell him how several people like Jiraiya, Sakura, Kakashi, Hinata, Konohamaru, Tsunade, Iruka, and most of the Konoha 11 tried to visit him when he slept, but were refused access each time. For the next 2 days nothing much happened, although after being in the hospital for so long, Naruto was itching to get out of the hospital, as he was tired of being stuck in bed. Currently he was now listening to a report from Zhuge Liang about the conditions of their shinobis, and how they were being transported to the airships. At the same time, Unohana Retsu was doing a detailed checkup on Naruto, to see how his body had recovered from his battle. Once Zhuge Liang had finished his report, Retsu had finished her examen. Well, Unohana-san, how am I? Asked Naruto, although he already knew the answer to it. Well, Raikage-sama, I'm pleased to report that you're as healthy as you were when I first examined you, and that your regenerative bloodline is a true marvel of nature, commented Retsu. So does that mean I can finally get out of here? Asked Naruto, as he was tired of staying in this room. I'm afraid not just yet, Raikage-sama, as I would like to keep you in here for another day or two, just for observation, so to make certain that your body has full recovered from the battle, answered Retsu. Oh, come on, Unohana-san, I've been in here for over 2 weeks now. I going stir crazy being stuck here all the time. Besides, I'm in perfect health, you said so yourself, and feel great, spoke Naruto. I'm aware of what I said, Raikage-sama, but there still may be some unknown after effects, hence I'd like to keep you under observation for just a little longer to be safe, replied Unohana. Well, with all due respect, Unohana-san, I feel great, and since I'm the Raikage, I have final say, spoke Naruto. I'm afraid that is where you are wrong, Raikage-sama, spoke Unohana, with her traditional friendly smile. Since as head of the hospital and the Medical Combat Corp, I've final say on the condition of all my patients, and you do not, and since you are my patient, you'll have to do what I say. You're kidding me? Cried Naruto. I'm afraid so, Raikage-sama, spoke Unohana, where she then started to walk out of the room, but suddenly stopped and, also please remember, Raikage-sama, that while it is good to be energetic, please stay in your bed until I officially clear you. For as long as you're still my patient and in this hospital, your life is in my hands. So please do not forget that, spoke Retsu in a friendly smile and tone of voice, yet at the same time she emanated a powerful, dark, intimidating presence to underline her words. This made everyone in the room, including Killer Bee, Naruto, Zhuge Liang, and Mitsuhide, very nervous and even fearful, showing exactly why Unohana was the most feared person in all of New Kumo. Once Retsu left the room, everyone began to relax a little and sigh with relief. Damn yo, that was intense, no doubt, spoke Killer Bee. Indeed, replied Zhuge Liang. How the hell can she seem so friendly and kind, yet at the same time seem so scary, dangerous, and intimidating? Asked Yuffie. I don't know, but I wish I knew, commented Soifin. No kidding, as sometimes I think that maybe you guys should have made her Raikage instead of me, as knowing Retsu, she could have probably scared off Orochimaru, the Mizukage, the Tsuchikage, all 4 Hokages and the others by just looking at them, said Naruto, which caused everyone to chuckle, as knowing Unohana, it was probably true. One cannot expect anything less than that from a student of Tsunade-sama, spoke Zhuge Liang. Yeah, well, to be honest, Retsu is a hell of a lot scarier than the old hag ever could be, answered Naruto. Many could argue against that, saying she is just as frightening as or more than Retsu, spoke Yujito. I doubt that, as at least I could stand up to the old hag. Retsu is a whole other level, replied Naruto. To each their own, I guess, said Sayuri, although she couldn't really argue with Naruto when it came to Retsu. Soon after, a knock came on the door, and one of the storm means guarding his door entered the room. Raikage-sama, the Godame Kazekage, along with his brother, sister, and wife are here and are asking to see you. Dara here? Asked Naruto, where the storm mean wearing a tiger-shaped mask just nodded, upon which Naruto then told him to let Gaara and his family in. "Gaara!" greeted Naruto with a smile as he saw his friend and fellow Jinchuriki and Kage. "Greeting Raikage-sama," replied Gaara politely, where his wife Matsuri, sister Temari and brother Kakuro replied in similar manners. "Please Gaara's all of you, call me Naruto, as I don't like being called that, when I'm not on duty, and according to Retsu, I'm not as I'm still a patient here." "I hope it is nothing serious?" asked Gaara, as he was concerned about his friend, who had saved his life during the Battle of Konoha, when he arrived. "It's nothing, it's just Retsu being overly cautious," replied Naruto with a wave of his hand, indicating it was nothing, after which he turned to Matsuri. "Ah, and this must be your lovely wife Matsuri, who I've heard about," said Naruto, with a charming-like smile. This of course made the young woman blush red. Thank you Raikage Dinka, I've heard a great deal about you as well, from Garakuen, Temari-san and Kankuro Oniai-san. Naruto of course smiled and then reintroduced Shuga Lian and the others, including his wives to them. When Kankuro heard that Yujito and the other girls were all Naruto's wives, his jaw dropped. "You're saying that all of them are your wives?" spoke Kankuro in surprise, as he found it hard to believe that all these attractive girls were married to Naruto. "Pretty much," said Naruto with a cheesy grin, as he scratched his head, as he was kind of used to this, as a lot of people acted like this when they heard that he had more than one wife. At this Kankuro could not help but gap, when he looked at the 8 attractive women, where he also could not help but envy Naruto and think, luckily bastard. "So you've 8 wives?" asked Temari, as she had heard that since the Raikage was the last of his clan with a bloodline, he could marry multipliable women, if they agreed. Such things were not unheard of and were only allowed when a clan with a bloodline that was on the verge of going extinct and a shinobi village wanted to keep the bloodline and clan alive. "Actually, no, I've several more to be honest," said Naruto, as he was kind of embarrassed and uncomfortable about this, especially with the look Kankuro was giving him. "You have more? How many?" asked Kankuro. "Well, there's Koiki-chan and there's…" spoke Naruto but was interrupted by Kankuro before he could continue. "Wait, Koiki, as in Kazuhana Koyuki aka Fujike's Yuki," spoke Kankuro in surprise, where Naruto nodded, before Kankuro cried out, "Oh!" After which he then started to weep, while muttering things like, why did this happen, and, he doesn't deserve her. "I take it he's had a thing for Koiki-chan," spoke Naruto, as he had seen this kind reaction before with Koiki male fans, and some females, when they found out he was married to her. Gaara, Temari and Matsuri all nodded with embarrassment at Kankuro's actions, telling Naruto that Kankuro was a long-time fan and had a major crush on her. After a while Kankuro finally calmed down, although Kankuro still gave Naruto several jealous glares, after which, Gaara and others spent the next few hours talking about what happened during Naruto's 10 years in exile and how Naruto became Raikage. Eventually though Naruto decided to get to one of the points of Gaara's visit. "So Gaara, as much as I enjoyed talking and catching up with you, I know there's more to your visit than just catching up on the last 10 years. You certainly changed, Uzumaki-san," commented Gaara with a slight smile, as Naruto was a lot more astute than he used to be. "Gaara, how many times do I have to tell you, call me Naruto, as we're friends after all?" spoke Naruto with a smile. "Very well then Naruto-san, as you're correct, as my visit involves more than just conversing with you about the past 10 years. The other reason why I've come here is to ask for an alliance between your village and the Heavenly Alliance, with my village. As during the recent battle, I lost half the shinobis that I brought here, which puts Suna at a disadvantage, as our military was already the lowest of the 5 great shinobi nations. Also, after seeing and hearing about your alliance strength, I can see that it would be in the best interest of my village to ally itself with yours." When Naruto heard Gaara asking for an alliance, a small smile appeared on his face, although it quickly disappeared before Gaara or the others saw it. "I would be happy to form an alliance between your village and the Heavenly Alliance, although I will of course have to confer with the other shinobi members of the alliance. But I'm sure they will agree. Also, if your daimyo also wishes to form an alliance with us, please tell him that he will be more than welcome to join," spoke Naruto. "I shall indeed to do that, Naruto-san," spoke Gaara. "Good, when I speak to the other members, I shall inform them of your petition to form an alliance with us, where if they agree, which I'm sure they will, I send you an invitation to join the alliance gathering. As several nations are preparing to join the Heavenly Alliance, and I believe that would be the best time to negotiate our alliance with one another." said Naruto. I look forward to hearing from you then, Naruto-san, replied Gaara. Also, before I forget, I wish to thank for saving from the Akatsuki. Natural, when Gaara said this, his two siblings and wife were shocked by the news. Wait, Gaara. Are you saying that Naruto was the one who saved you when the Akatsuki captured you? Kankuro asked. Since for years they had been trying to find out who had saved Gaara and killed Sasori and defeated his partner Deidara. Yes. Gaara replied simply. So you knew? Naruto asked, as he too was slightly surprised by the news, as well as amused. Actually no, I only realized it after you revealed yourself when you faced Orochimaru and his allies. Then how did you know it was me? When I was drifting in and out of unconscious I saw you for a moment, telling me I would be fine. Gaara, why did you never tell us this? Temari asked, since this was the first any of them were hearing this. I assumed that I had died momentarily, given how at the time we all believed that Naruto-sama was dead, and I did not want to worry you at the time. After hearing this, Temari and the others could only nod, since they had to agree if Gaara had told them of it they would have worried about him. So which one were you? Kankuro asked suddenly, since according to the rumors they heard Sasori and Deidara had two enemy shinobi. I was the one who killed Sasori. My friend and partner Anasu fought Deidara, Naruto answered. When Kankuro heard this he could only shake his head at amazement, since he couldn't believe that back then Naruto was strong enough to fight and kill the legendary puppet master Akasuna no Sasori of the Red Sand. Am I correct in assuming that you were also the one who improved the seal on my husband? Masato asked as she joined in the conversation. Actually no, that was done by Sensei Zhuge Liang, Naruto replied as he pointed to his teacher. Then you have my thanks, Zhuge Liang-sama, said Gaara as he turned and bowed slightly to the elder man, who stated that it was nothing and that he had been happy to help. After a few more minutes of talking, Gaara then bid his goodbye to his friend, as he and his remaining forces were returning to their village tomorrow. Soon after Gaara left, Masato 7 quickly appeared in the room by Shunshin with an urgent and serious look on his face, well more serious than usual, holding a folder. Upon seeing Naruto, Masato quickly bowed respectful to his Kage before he then spoke. Raikage-sama, I am pleased to see that you are well. Thanks, Masato. So what's up? Asked Naruto, as he could tell that something was up with his red-cloaked friend. I've just received the urgent report from one of our agents and thought you should see it immediately, spoke Masato, as he handed Naruto the folder. Naruto took the folder and quickly began to read it, where once he finished his eyes widened, before he turned to Masato. Is this information creditable? Asked Naruto. Yes it is, as I know and trust the agent, as she one of our best and took a great risk to inform me of this. It was only by pure chance that she learned of this, replied Masato, when Naruto nodded. After which he then shared what was in the folder with the others, who were wondering what was wrong, and why it got Naruto so serious. When Naruto finished telling them, Miss Suhide quickly spoke. We need to move on this quickly, as something like this does not present itself often. Indeed, as it seems the heavens themselves are presenting this information as a gift to us, spoke Zhuge Liang. Masato, when is it happening? Asked Naruto urgently. 2 weeks from now, replied Masato. Then we need to move on this fast, as we need to head back to New Kumo, plan out what we're going to do. As if we succeed in this, it will be a major victory and boost to us, spoke Naruto out loud, before he turned Zhuge Liang. Zhuge Liang-sensei, I need you Sayuri-sensei and Mitsuhide-sensei to gather our forces and have them ready to move out the day after tomorrow, spoke Naruto with an authoritative tone of voice that showed why he was the Raikage. Hi Raikage-sama, spoke Zhuge Liang, Sayuri and Mitsuhide together before they quickly left to do what Naruto had ordered. After which Naruto then started to give our other orders to the others in the room, where they then quickly left the room, until only Killer Bee, Naruto and his 3 female bodyguards/wives were left in the room. Upon which Naruto began to rethink his plans for Konoha, as with this new development, he wouldn't have the time he thought he would have to do them. Meaning he would have to do everything he had planned to do by tomorrow. The next day after meeting Gaara, Naruto was out of the hospital room, walking the streets of Konoha with Okatsu, Yujito, Fu and Killer Bee. Naruto had just finished saying goodbyes to Gaara at southern gate of Konoha and was now on his way to visit some friends. Naruto was currently wearing his blue long coat with 3 tails with a white lightning-like pattern on the right side of the coat. That also had black lightning bolts at the edges of the coat and at kanji 4 storm on the back. Along with that he wore a short-sleeved black t-shirt, but with an ANBU armor chest plate, as well as black fingerless gloves and a Kumo headband wrapped around his right arm. He also had his black jeans and boots with steel tips and had a black strap around his shoulders, whole Tengu on his back. His short bright blonde hair was back to being slicked back and spiked up at the back, with bright blue highlights in the shape of lightning bolts that traveled from the spike ends to the front. As Naruto walked down the street with his bodyguards, he could see everyone on the street, making way for them and staring at him, some with fear over the power he had, some with anger at him being alive and other with neutral looks, as they were unsure how they should feel. Naruto and the others of course ignored them and continued on, as they could care less what the people of Konoha thought of them. As they continued on, Naruto and the others noticed that like the last time when they were in Konoha, they were being followed by Root and Konoha ANBU, but this time, there were about 6 teams following them. Although what the Root and Konoha ANBU ninjas didn't know was that they themselves were being followed by 12 teams of Storm Nins, who were secretly following them to make sure that none of them tried anything against their Raikage. As Naruto was walking, Okatsu suddenly spoke up. "Are you sure that this was okay, Naruto? As you're technically disobeying Anohana-sama orders, don't worry, I can handle Unohana, as I am the legendary Raikage after all," spoke Naruto as he puffed out of his chest. "Is that so, Raikage-sama?" spoke Unohana from directly behind Naruto, who went pale white and quickly turned around to find Unohana standing behind him, with her traditional friendly smile. Hey Riretsu, why you? No, I was just kidding just now, and I only came out for some fresh air and… spoke Naruto nervously, as he about ready to Reipo, lightning step, as far away as possible, and escape the hellish torture that Unohana was sure to unleash upon him. But before he could start running, Unohana busted out laughing, and then turned into Yujito, who used a henge transformation to turn into Retsu. She was then joined in her laughter by Killer Bee and the other girls. "Ah ha 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 ha, oh man Naruto, ha ha ha, you should have seen your face, ha ha ha, it was priceless, ha ha ha," laughed Yujito, as she was ready to burst a lung from laughing so hard. "That was killer yo," laughed Killer Bee as he couldn't stop laughing. "Oh man, ha ha ha, I thought for sure you'll wet yourself, ha ha ha, when you heard Yujito mimic Retsu," spoke Fu as she and Okatsu were laughing their heads off at Naruto. "That wasn't funny," said an annoyed Naruto. He could believe that he, the prankster prince, got pranked by his own wife of all people, where he was beginning to think that a bit of himself had rubbed off on his wives. "Ha ha ha, maybe not for you, ha ha ha, but it was for us, it was hilarious," said Yujito as she continued laughing. Soon after, Yujito and the others stopped laughing, but still chuckled now and again over it. Even Naruto had to admit it was pretty funny. Eventually though, they arrived at their first destination, which was a small house, which had survived the battle, without much damage done to it. Naruto then knocked on the door of house and waited for a few seconds until the door opened. When it opened, a young girl about 5 years of age, with violet hair done up in a short, somewhat spiky ponytail. The girl also had brown eyes and dark tan-like skin and wore a short sleeveless cream shirt and brown pants. "Hello Aiko, it's nice to finally meet you," spoke Naruto friendly. "Who are you? And how do you know my name?" asked the young girl, with a slightly confused and unsure look at how Naruto knew her name. "I'm an old friend of your dad's, and I came here to see him," said Naruto. "To-san! There's some guy here to see you!" cried Aiko. "Who is it, Aiko?" asked Irika as he popped his head from the living room to see who it was, whereupon seeing Naruto, Irika's eyes widened in surprise. "Naruto? Yo sensei, long time no see," said Naruto, with cheesy smile. "Naruto!" cried Irika, and he quickly raced out of the living room and towards his former student, and he gave Naruto a fatherly hug which Naruto happily returned. "You idiot, I thought you were dead," said Irika happily, as he let go of Naruto after a minute or two. "Yes, sorry about that, sensei, I needed everyone to think that," replied Naruto, as he was indeed happy to see his former sensei and friend/father figure. Before Irika could respond to that, Aiko suddenly spoke up. "To-san, who is he?" asked the young girl. Irika then quickly turned around and knelt next to his daughter. "Aiko, this Naruto, the one who I told you about, remember?" "You mean that's Naruto Zenai-san, but you said he was dead," said the confused little girl. "Well, I was wrong, and he's the Raikage of New Kumo," said Irika, where her eyes widened at hearing that Naruto was the famed Raikage. That everyone was talking about it was at this pointed and Anko appeared out of the house. "Irika-kun, what's all the commotion?" asked Anko, until she saw Naruto and the others, where she then smiled. "Well, I'd be damned, if I didn't know any better I would say I was seeing a ghost," said Anko with a grin. "Yo, Snake Lady, nice seeing you too," greeted Naruto. "So Naruto, are these your bodyguards?" asked Irika as he looked at Killer Bee and the girls. "Yes, they are. This is Killer Bee and these are my wives Yujito, Fu and Okatsu," said Naruto as he introduced them, where they each greeted Irika and his family in their own traditional way. "So the rumors are true, you do have your own little harem," said Anko with a saucy grin. Yeah, it's true," said Naruto, as he scratched his head in embarrassment and had a cheesy grin. "You're a real pimp now, aren't you, and probably the envy of every guy in your village, as you're the boss of your own little harem," spoke Anko. "Well, you might be right about being envied, but the boss, I wouldn't go and say that," said Naruto, as he smiled and looked to the girls next to him, who smiled back at him. "I see you've already been whipped by them then," said Anko with a grin. "Well, they do outnumber me," replied Naruto with a smirk. "Never thought you as the settling down time Naruto, especially at your age," spoke Irika. "Well, I could say the same kind of thing about you, sensei, with you and Snake Lady here getting hitched and later on having a kid," said Naruto. Well, certain things happen," spoke Irika, with some embarrassment, as he scratched the back of his head, similar to Naruto, after which he then invited Naruto and the others into the house, where they all took some seats in the living room. For the next few hours Naruto, Irika and Anko and the others talked away, catching up with the past 10 years. During the conversation, Naruto informed Irika and Anko how he had sent out his wife Takara and Tatara Hamryo, 8, to look for them and make sure that they were okay. Upon learning this, both Irika and Anko thanked him, as if it wasn't for Hamryo and Takara, they would have been killed by the crew's seal warriors. Also during the conversation, Aiko was full of questions about Naruto, as she had heard a lot about him from her father. She was especially excited to hear about Naruto's battle against Orochimaru and the coalition leaders and the 4 Hokages, as she had heard some of the shinobis talk about how incredible it was, and who better to hear it from than the person himself. Naruto of course told Aiko how the battle went, but didn't go into exact detail, as he didn't want to be too graphical, as she was only 5 after all. Irika and Anko were of course all ears themselves as they too had heard the stories, but hadn't seen it. When Naruto finished his story, Irika and Anko were of course amazed at how strong Naruto had become, especially Irika, who was extremely proud of Naruto. "Hey Naruto and I-san, can you teach me how to do Inazuma, Lightning Flash?" asked Aiko eagerly, as after hearing about it and seeing the aftermath she thought it would be cool to learn. At this Naruto smiled slightly. "Sorry Aiko, but I can't teach you that, as I'm the only person that can do it." "AWWWW," moaned Aiko sorrowfully, as she thought it'd be really cool jutsu to learn it. Seeing the young girl's disappointment, Naruto decided to do something. "Well, I may not be able to teach you my Inazuma, but I can teach you something else, if you're interested," spoke Naruto, which immediately got the girl's attention. "Really?" asked an excited Aiko. "With your dad's permission, of course," spoke Naruto, where Irika nodded, saying it was okay, as long as it wasn't over the top or dangerous. Soon after, Naruto took Aiko out to the small backyard and asked her what she knew, where she told him she knew how to walk on walls and trees, along with water, and knew the 3 basic academy jutsu, which impressed Naruto, as she was quite advanced for her age. Naruto then decided to see what nature affinity she was, to see if there was any jutsu he could teach her. When Aiko placed her hand to the special chakra-sensitive paper that Naruto took out, the paper split in 2, showing that she had an affinity to wind, which was surprising as Naruto knew how rare it was in Konoha and Hai no Kuni. "Wind, well that's surprising, but it good as there are a few things I can teach you," spoke Naruto. After which he then gave her a leaf and taught her how to channel her wind affinity and cut the leaf. Much to Naruto's amazement, Aiko got it within an hour, after which he decided to teach her a jutsu. "Now the technique I'm going to teach you is called Futon, Repusho, Wind Style, Violent Wind Palm. It's a C rank technique and is quite power, as it can easily knock over a person. Although the true value of this technique comes from using it together with projection weapons like shurikens and kunais, as the technique increases the speed, power of the weapons several times over," spoke Naruto, where Aiko nodded her head in understanding. Naruto then clapped his hand together and cried out, "Futon, Repusho!" After which a powerful gale exploded from Naruto's hands and blew apart a large bush, and tore up a good bit of the ground as it blew towards the bush. Awesome! Cried Aiko. Now I have to teach you how to do that hand seals, as you won't be able to do it the same way that I do, as you don't have enough skill in wind ninjutsu, said Naruto, where Aiko nodded again in understanding. For the next hour and a half Naruto helped Aiko practice using the jutsu. At first all Aiko could do was blow a slight breeze, but eventually she got better, where she was able to blow away about half the leaves of another nearby bush, although still was nowhere near the level that Naruto could do it. Pretty good, Aiko, said Naruto with a smile, as he looked down at the tired young girl, as she had used a lot of her chakra when practicing. But I'm still nowhere near as good as when you did it, said Aiko. Don't worry about it, Aiko. You're doing a lot better than I did when I was first practicing and using my wind affinity, as it took me several days to be able to use it, and even longer to be able to use jutsus, especially the way I can now. Eventually, with enough practice, you have it down in no time, where you'll be as good if not better than me. Just remember one thing, never give up, said Naruto. Right, I won't, and I-san, replied Aiko with determination, which made Naruto smile, where then walked back to Irika, Anko and the others, who were watching from the back of the house. You make a good teacher, Naruto, commented Irika. Thanks, I learned from the best, replied Naruto, which made Irika smile. Here, take these, they're a list of wind jutsu that I created, along with ways to help improve her wind affinity, since I know that there aren't that many wind jutsu users in Konoha. I'm sure these will come in handy for her in learning how to use her wind affinity, and in training in it later on, spoke Naruto, as he handed Irika a scroll from a pocket in his trench coat. Thank you, Naruto, said Irika. Also, there is something that Anko and I want to ask you, what's that, sensei? Well, said Irika as he put his arms around Anko. We like you to be the godfather of our second child. At hearing this, Naruto's eyes widened slightly, and turned to Anko. You're pregnant? Where Anko just nodded. Yeah, found out when I was being checked out by the medics a while back. Congratulations, and yes, I would be honored, said Naruto sincerely. Also, if ever wish to leave Konoha, you're all more than welcome to come to New Kumo and stay or visit at least. Thank you, but Konoha is our home, but maybe we might visit someday, replied Irika, where Naruto just nodded in understanding. Irika-sensei, there's also another reason why I'm here, as I'm planning something and I would like you help in what I have planned, spoke Naruto. What exactly is it? Asked Irika, when Naruto went on to explain his plan, after which Irika agreed to help. After leaving Irika's home, Naruto and the others then headed to their next destination, which was the Sarutobi clan compound. There Naruto met some members of the Sarutobi clan. Upon which he asked to see Konohamaru, where the guards nodded and one of them went to inform Konohamaru, while the other remained with Naruto and the others. Soon enough Konohamaru came out and greeted Naruto. Ni-san! Cried the 18-year-old Konohamaru, as he then hugged his older brother figure. Hey Squirt, it's been a while, you've gotten pretty big since I last saw you, replied Naruto, after Konohamaru let him go and smiled at Konohamaru, after which Konohamaru then punched Naruto hard in the arm. Ow, hey, is that any way to greet someone? Asked Naruto as he rubbed his arm, as he had to admit, Konohamaru was quite strong. That was for making me think you were dead, you just lucky. I'm more happy that you're alive, than angry that you made me think you've been dead for 10 years. Spoke an annoyed Konohamaru. Sorry, guess I deserve that, said Naruto. You did, said Konohamaru, after which he turned to look towards Yujito, Okatsu and Fu and smiled. And these must be the rest of your little harem. Boy, Nisen, you are the man, as only you could live every guy's fantasy. Would that include you, Konohamaru-kun? Spoke a female voice coming out of Konohamaru, large home, and making the young Sarutobi clan head freeze in fear. Yeah, hey Hanabi-chan, spoke Konohamaru nervously. So would having multiple wives be your fantasy? Spoke Hanabi, with a raised eyebrow and in a calm neutral tone. No, of course not, Hanabi-chan, you're the only for me, spoke Konohamaru nervously, as he had no wish to be on Hanabi's bad side, again. I glad to hear that, spoke Hanabi, calmly. As this was happening, Yujito and the girls gave Hanabi nods of approval, at the young female Hyuga reigning in her fiancé, while Killer Bee snickered silently at seeing Konohamaru cower in face of his fiancé. Naruto on the other hand gave Konohamaru a sympathetic look, as he knew what it was like to be on the receiving end of an angry female. Although he had it much worse, as he had to deal with a number of different females at the same time, while Konohamaru only had to deal with one. Soon enough Hanabi eased her stare at the cowering Konohamaru, after which she turned to Naruto and the others and bowed respectfully towards Naruto. "It is an honor to meet you, Raikage-sama. I have heard much about you from my sister and Konohamaru-kun. It's a pleasure to meet you as well, Hanabi-san," replied Naruto friendly, where after the introductions were done, Hanabi and Konohamaru invited Naruto and Ko into Konohamaru's home. For the next few hours, like with Iruka and his family, Naruto talked to Konohamaru and Hanabi and caught up with one another, after the past 10 years. During which, Konohamaru went on to tell Naruto all the pranks that he pulled on the village. "Ha ha 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 ha, you actually got a pair of dogs to leg fuck that Koharu woman on each leg," cried Yujito as she laughed her head off at the image. "Hee hee hee hee, not to mention you tricked that Haruna one into walking out naked from her shower and glued her hands to her head," laughed Fu. "Hee hee hee hee, but it wasn't as good as what you did to the Uchiha. I would have loved to have seen his face when he saw what you did to his house and his clothes," giggled Okatsu. "No way yo, ha 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 ha, the best was you all did to Scarecrow Guy yo, where you tricked him into a gay bar," joked Killer Bee. "Ah man no, ha ha ha, the best was, ha ha ha, the Hyuga clan, ha ha ha, man I would have killed to see Hayashi face, ha ha ha, when he saw his underwear flying on the Hokage flag pole," said Naruto as he held his gut from laughing so hard. "I hate to admit it, Konohamaru, you've surpassed me on pranking, ha ha ha," commented Naruto, as an image Hayashi face. Soon enough though Naruto and the others calmed down, although Naruto then had a devilish-like smirk. "So Konohamaru, did you happen to help yourself to Hanabi's unmentionables when you raided the Hyuga compound?" "And no, of course not," cried a bright red Konohamaru, as his eyes darted back and forth from Naruto and Hanabi, although Hanabi had raised her left eyebrow slightly and stared at the nervous Konohamaru. After hearing Naruto's question, for although none of her unmentionables were scattered across the village like the others, it didn't necessarily mean Konohamaru helped himself to some of them. So Anai-san, how long are you going to be staying?" asked Konohamaru nervously, hoping to change the subject. "We'll be leaving tomorrow," answered Naruto. "What? But you just woke up!" cried Konohamaru. "Sorry Konohamaru, but something has come up that needs my attention at New Kumo. Besides, I think it's for the best that I leave here as soon as possible, as there has already been enough trouble between those who hate here and my shinobis," replied Naruto. At this Konohamaru narrowed his eyes, as once again Naruto was being forced to leave the village because of the bigots in the civilian population and in the shinobi population. "But before I leave, I have a few things I want to get done here today, like thanking you for helping to protect me when I was unconscious, and for preventing the situation from getting out of hand and preventing the wounded from getting caught up it," spoke Naruto. "Don't worry about it, I was happy to help, after you saved us and all," replied Konohamaru. "Konohamaru, I should also warn you in advance that I'm planning on calling a meeting with Tsunade and the council, and I'm going to cause quite a lot trouble," spoke Naruto. "Like the good old days," interrupted a smiling Konohamaru, where Naruto just nodded and smiled. "Yeah, but this time, it's going to cause serious amount of trouble for Konoha, so I just want you to be prepared, that's all," spoke Naruto, where Konohamaru nodded. After a few minutes, Naruto stood up, along with Killer Bee and the girls, and prepared to leave, but as he did Konohamaru spoke up. "Wait Anai-san, I know this is short notice, but Hanabi and I would like to invite you to our wedding next month. Hi, we would be both greatly honored if you would come to celebrate our wedding," spoke Hanabi. At this Naruto smiled sadly. "I would be honored and greatly happy to be at your wedding, but I must decline sadly, as current matters, involving an alliance gathering that taking place in 2 months will keeping me busy for a while. Plus if I show up, I'm afraid that my appearance there would cause unwelcomed hostility and probably have a small army of Konoha and New Kumo shinobis glaring at one another at the wedding and ruin it for you both, which is something like to avoid." Konohamaru was of course saddened at hearing this, but nodded in understanding. Seeing this, Naruto smiled and then took out a small envelope and handed it to Konohamaru. "Here, I was planning to give this to you, think of it as my wedding gift to you both." When Konohamaru opened the envelope, he saw 2 gift vouchers in it. "What are they?" asked Konohamaru. "They're vouchers for a resort in Yurikure, hidden hot spring, a honeymoon if you will, as everything there will free of charge, as the village leader owes me a few favors and is a friend," said Naruto with a smile. "Thank you Raikage Denka, that was a very generous of you," replied Hanabi respectfully. Yeah, thanks, Nai-san, spoke Konohamaru, where Naruto just nodded and smiled again before he left with the others. At the memorial stone, a man stood in front of the memorial stone. He had been coming here every day, since the death of his friends and his sensei. It was one of the main reasons why he was so late for every appointment he had. Today, although he was here for a different reason, today he could not even look at the stone. This man was none other than Hatake Kakashi, aka Copy Ninja no Kakashi, Copy Ninja Kakashi, aka Sharingan no Kakashi, Kakashi of the Sharingan, only son of the famed Konoha no Shiroi Kiba, White Fang of Konoha, Hatake Tsukumo. The reason he had come to the stone was because he had hoped he could somehow find forgiveness for what he had done. For he had turned his back on Naruto, his student, his friend and comrade, and worst of all his sensei's son, a man he had admired and respected beyond anyone else. As he thought about Naruto, it brought back memories of his flaws as a teacher. He never took another team since then, because of these flaws and failings. He never trained Naruto, when he was his student, and he wasn't there to try and stop his banishment, or even there to say goodbye to him with the others. As he had believed he could say his goodbyes to Naruto the following day, when he was officially banished from the village, but he never did. Also because of these flaws and failings, he had lost the respect of his peers and his leader and disgraced the memory of his father, sensei, and his teammates, as he had betrayed everything that they once stood and died for. But when he came to the stone, he could not even look at it, as he felt that his sensei and teammates were looking at him with shame and disgust in their eyes. He had failed to protect his sensei's legacy, his only son, and he had failed his teammates and friends. He had once said to Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke, "Those who abandon their comrades are worse than scum." And he had meant it. Now thinking back on it, he had realized that he had not followed his own words or that of his dead comrade and friend Obito. He was nothing more than a hypocrite. Sensei. Obito. Rin. I'm so sorry. I'm so very, very, very sorry. I've failed you all. These words constantly repeated themselves through Kakashi's mind, as he stood in front of the stone. Well, now I guess what people say is true. No matter how much things change over time, some things always remain the same, spoke a familiar voice. When Kakashi turned around, he found none other than Naruto by himself, the very person he had just been thinking about. Naruto! Spoke Kakashi in surprise. Hatake, spoke Naruto neutrally, with an unreadable look. What are you doing here? Asked Kakashi. I was walking around the village, or what's left of it, seeing how much it changed over the past 10 years, and I felt a little nostalgic, and so I decided to come here, as this was where we first became a team, wasn't? Spoke Naruto with some anger, as each of his so-called teammates had betrayed or turned on him in some way along with his sensei. Kakashi, of course, could not help but flinch slightly at the anger in Naruto's voice, as he knew why Naruto was angry, and he couldn't really blame him. You're looking well, Naruto, said Kakashi offhandedly, so to start up a conversation. I am, as Anohana-san does good work, replied Naruto. I'm glad. I'm surprised you even care, consider you never visited me when I was in the hospital before, responded Naruto coldly, causing Kakashi to flinch yet again. Naruto, I know you're angry at me, but please know how sorry I am, as I know how much of a lousy sensei to you, spoke Kakashi. Sorry doesn't come even close to making up for turning you back on me. Even that worthless toad Jiraiya was more of a sensei to me than you were ever towards me, spoke Naruto. Kakashi, of course, lowered his head in shame as he knew Naruto was right. Naruto, if I, said Kakashi, but before he could finish, Naruto interrupted him. Save your excuses, Kakashi, I'm in no mood to hear them, as they're just as lousy and as worthless as they ever were, said Naruto coldly, where he then turned around and was about to walk away, but stopped when he came face to face with a group of people. Although this group wasn't any ordinary group, this group was made up of all the members of the Konoha 11, with Sai as the newest member, making it the new Konoha 12. Well, now isn't this a surprise, a real reunion of the old gang? Commented Naruto, as he faced the group, made up of mainly the people he still considered friends. He was immediately greeted by Akamaru, who ran forward and jumped on top of Naruto with a large woof, and started to lick him. Ha ha ha, stop it, Akamaru, ha ha ha, it tickles, ha ha ha, I'm happy to see you too, boy, ha 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 ha, laughed Naruto, as the big bear-sized dog was on top of him licking his face. Soon enough Akamaru got off him, after which Kiba then spoke up. Naruto, you jerk, you made us all think you were dead, I take back every nice thing I said about you. Hell, I'm even tempted to kill you myself for what you did. Yeah, dog breath. I happy to see you too and keep saying that. Maybe one day it might actually come true, although I highly doubt it. Replied Naruto with a smile, which annoyed Kiba, but he was still glad his friend was alive. I'm glad to see you're doing well, Raikage-sama, spoke Niji. Call me Naruto, Niji, as I'm technically not on duty right now. Also, how is your fiancée? She just came out of her coma today. She is still weak, but she is doing well, thanks to the Hokage and Anohana-sama, spoke Niji, with clear relief in his voice, as he was indeed relieved that his fiancée would be okay. I'm glad to hear that, replied Naruto sincerely. Yash Naruto-kun, you have no idea how happy I'm to see you. The flames of youth truly burn brightly within you. But why did you make us think that you were dead? It was very unyouthful of you to do such a thing, spoke Lee. I'm sorry, Lee, it was nothing personal, but it was something that I needed to do at the time and will be explained later on, I promise, spoke Naruto, where Lee just nodded in acceptance. So Lee, I heard that you're married now and have a daughter now, spoke Naruto. Hi, her name is Fuku and the flames of youth burn brightly within her, spoke Lee, as his daughter was the apple of his eye and could do no wrong. I'm happy to hear that, said Naruto, as he was indeed happy for his friend. Oh, and don't forget, you and I have to have that sparring match sometime. Yash, I look forward to it, but no, I will not lose, replied Lee with his good guy pose, where Naruto just smiled and nodded, saying that he would expect nothing less. TSK, you really are a troublesome person, Naruto, muttered Shikamaru, although had a slight smile on his face, as like the others he was glad his friend was alive. Well, I wouldn't be me if I wasn't, replied Naruto with a smirk, where Shikamaru just nodded, as he agreed Naruto would be himself if he wasn't troublesome. I hear that you're married now too, and expecting a kid as well right now, spoke Naruto, where Shikamaru just nodded again. Like for Lee, Naruto was happy for Shikamaru, after which he then spoke a bit with Shino, Tenten and Choji. After speaking with them, Naruto turned to Hinata and smiled. Good to see you again, Hinata-chan. It's been a while. I've heard quite a lot about you over the past few years, where you've gotten really powerful during that time. Thank you, Naruto-kun, said Hinata with a smile, although as she did, she could feel butterflies in her stomach, as she spoke with Naruto, something she had not felt in many years. As she didn't know how Naruto made her feel like this, she just knew he could. Also, I want to thank you for helping my shinobis protect me when I was unconscious in the hospital and for disrupting the mob before things could get out of hand, said Naruto. I was happy to help you, Naruto-kun. After you helped save us, I only wish I could have done more, replied Hinata, with a kind smile. Although as she looked at Naruto, she also remembered that Naruto was married now, and most likely had no feelings for her whatsoever, and was happy with his own wives. As when she first realized this, soon after the Battle of Konoha, she had felt her heart almost break, but thankfully, she kept herself in control and did not break down. After which she silently swore to herself that regardless of Naruto's feelings towards her, she would at least tell him one day of hers. But not now, as this was not the right place or time, but one day soon. After speaking to Hinata, Naruto then faced Sai. You're the one who took my place on Team 7, Sai, if I not mistake. Hi, Raikage-sama, it is an honor to meet you again. I have heard much about you from the others, even from Dickless and the hag here, replied Sai, as he indicated Sasuke and Sakura, which made Naruto laugh at their nicknames, and caused said people to glare coldly at Sai. Ha ha ha, man, that was brilliant. It too bad you and I didn't meet sooner, Sai. I'm sure we could have become good friends. Also call me Naruto, as like I said, I'm not on duty right now. Thank you, Naruto-san, and I too believe we could have become friends had we met earlier, replied Sai with a slight smile. Naruto of course nodded and then turned to face his two former teammates. The Raikage then stared down at the captain, aka Sasuke, and Sakura, and just stood silently staring at one another. To those watching, it seemed like an eternity as Naruto and his former teammates stared at each other. Naruto and Sasuke both stared at each other, with cold, emotionless, unreadable looks, where no one could tell what either of them were thinking about. Sakura, on the other hand, didn't know what to say or do, as the past several years she had lived with the regret and self-loathing of how she betrayed her former teammate. Yet now, staring directly at him, she didn't know what to say or do. After a long silence, Sakura decided to finally break the tension, as she could no longer stand the tense atmosphere. It is good to see you again, Naruto, said Sakura after the long silence. That is Raikage-sama, to you Haruno-san, although it is good to see you too, replied Naruto, coldly, but then quickly became more neutral. Sakura of course flinched at the coldness of Naruto's tone, and also noticed the other's words were forced. How have you been? Asked the pink-haired medic, hoping to smooth things over. Happy, he said flatly, causing Sakura to flinch. He turned back to Sasuke. You've healed nicely from our last battle, Sasuke. Must have been all that training Haruno received. Love is a powerful drug, I see, spoke Naruto with a slight sneer. Sasuke of course said nothing and Sakura looked ashamed. After a few moments of silence, Sasuke then spoke. Raikage, huh? Well, not exactly Hokage, is it? But I guess since you couldn't hack it here, you might as well try being Kage of a second-rate village. That needs to relay on other villages, to make up for their own deficiencies, said Sasuke mockingly, hoping to antagonize Naruto. Naruto of course didn't react to Sasuke's cheap jibe, although Sakura and the others looked at the Uchiha like he was stupid, trying to pick a fight with Naruto, especially after what they saw him do during the Battle of Konoha. Raikage-sama, he didn't mean anything by that, said Sakura, quickly and panic-like, as she was worried that he would cause an international incident. Sasuke of course just scoffed, showing that he did mean what he said, and ignored the glares from Sakura and all the others at him. Naruto, on the other hand, found the situation kind of amusing. So you're in the ANBU. I'm surprised that Tsunade allowed you on the squad, said Naruto, although Naruto already knew he wasn't with regular ANBU, as he was just hoping to make his own little jibes at Sasuke. I'm not part of Tsunade's ANBU, he said with a condescending tone. I belong to the elite. Ah yes, I do believe I heard some mention of something like that, replied Naruto, with bored tone, not the least bit impressed. Failing upwards, I see, causing the young Uchiha glare coldly at him. Although I have to admit I was slightly surprised when I heard it, as I never thought you would decide to become Danzo's lapdog, spoke Naruto with a slight smirk, and causing Sasuke to glare angrily at him. Not to mention, causing several members of the Konoha 11, especially Kiba, to smirk. I'm no one's lapdog, spoke Sasuke angrily. Sure, keep telling yourself that, maybe it might actually come true, replied Naruto, with a slight smile. At hearing this, Sasuke's eyes glared at the man before him, but it quickly disappeared, where he then smirked, where when they saw this smirk everyone, especially Kakashi, Naruto and Sakura, became curious about the smirk. You probably haven't heard this, but I thought you should know that I'll soon be becoming Hokage, spoke Sasuke with a slightly arrogant smirk. Oh, I was under the impression that the Hokage chooses who next Hokage is, or at least the fire daimyo, after which they have to be approved by the Jonin Council. Hence I was under the impression that Konohamaru had just as good a chance as you do, replied Naruto, as he had heard about all this when he had spoken to Konohamaru earlier. Konohamaru may be strong, but I'm stronger, and the obvious choice. Besides, it has been decided by the people and the shinobi elders, and they've already convinced the fire daimyo that I would be the better choice, as Hokage, spoke Sasuke, before he continued. Tsunade may have done an okay over the past few years, but she is getting old and will soon be asked to step down in the near future, as it's his time for someone more suited for the position to take over the village and return Konoha as the strongest of the shinobi nations. At hearing this, Naruto's eyes took a hard glance at Sasuke, while Sakura and the other glared at Sasuke with angry looks at how he just insulted Tsunade, as she was still their leader, regardless of what Sasuke said. They were especially angry at how Sasuke was rubbing right in Naruto's face that he was stealing Naruto's original dream. Natural, after hearing this everyone was expecting Naruto to explode, not only for Sasuke taking his dream, but for insulting Tsunade. 9. But they got the surprise of their lives when Naruto just grinned and laughed. Well, congratulations, future Rokudame. May you lead Konoha as greatly as the former Hokages, as Konoha finally has a Hokage that is worthy of it, spoke Naruto with a grin. When Sasuke heard this, he smirked, thinking that Naruto finally admitted that he, Sasuke, was superior to him, Naruto. Everyone else was of course gabbing at this as well, but Sasuke smirking and the others gabbing quickly ended, when Naruto continued. For now Konoha finally has a Hokage that is as rotten on the inside as it is. Finished Naruto, shocking everyone again at what he said about their village. Now, if you would excuse me, I've other more important matters that need my attention, said Naruto, as he walked off. Sasuke was of course a tad bit annoyed at what Naruto said and that Naruto didn't take the bait. But before he could think on the matter more, Naruto suddenly stopped and turned slightly to Sasuke. "Oh, there's one other thing I wanted to ask." "What is it?" Sasuke said. "How goes the rebuilding the clan thing and the revenge of your clan?" asked the blonde Raikage. Sasuke of course snarled a little at the mention of this, but kept his emotions in check. "That's really none of your business," he replied coldly. "Oh, I'm sorry for prying. It's just that I met Itachi and Kisame a year after I was banished. You know, that whole getting the Kyuubi out of me thing. I'm sure you heard about that little run-in." "What are you trying to say?" growled Sasuke, as he knew Naruto was talking about the incident that involved everyone thinking that Naruto had been captured and killed by the Akatsuki. "Well, as you know, I got into a bit of a scuffle with them, and I wanted to confirm something with you, as I understand that you met him a year and a half later," Naruto said sheepishly. "What did you do?" shouted Sasuke angrily. "Well, you see, he and Kisame attacked me and I simply defended myself, during which I used my Byakurai, White Lightning, which I was still developing at the time. Meaning I didn't have much control over it, but I got a lucky shot off and hit him with it. Upon which, he was wounded pretty badly, where Kisame had to pick him up and carry him off as they retreated, as he lost a lot of blood, as the wound was pretty bad from what I saw. Hence I just wanted to confirm if that wound on his chest was as big as people say it is, as I couldn't really see it much with all that blood and all," he said in a matter-of-fact tone. When Sasuke heard this, he froze in shock, as he remembered when he last saw his brother, back on the mission to save Gaara, when he was kidnapped by the Akatsuki. Flashback: after firing a large fireball at Itachi, there was a large cloud of smoke covering everyone's view of Itachi, but the smoke soon dissipated, revealing Itachi with his Akatsuki cloak destroyed and his shirt completely burned off, although had no burns on his skin. But when they saw his bare torso, Sasuke and the others saw a large wound on his chest. They knew that the wound wasn't caused by Sasuke's attack, as the wound was old. "You've indeed gotten stronger, Sasuke-kun, but not strong enough," spoke Itachi. "That wound? Where did you get that wound? I know my attack didn't do that," said Sasuke, as he narrowed his eyes. "This wound is from a near-fatal injury that I received from battling an individual whose potential far surpasses yours, and is most likely now far stronger than you and I by now, and who you can never hope to surpass," replied Itachi calmly. "Who is he? Who did that to you?" roared Sasuke angrily, at how someone nearly killed his brother and nearly robbed him of his revenge, and who his brother said was stronger than either of them. But despite Sasuke's angrily roars, Itachi would not answer and remained silent. End flashback: just as Naruto had planned, Sasuke reacted exactly the way he knew he would and had planned. Sasuke's Sharingan suddenly blazed in anger, and he took out his Chikudo and used his Chidori Katana, 1,000 Birds Katana, causing everyone to take a few steps back from him, as the amount of chakra he poured into the Chikudo kicking up the dust around him. "Sasuke, what the hell are you doing? What's wrong with you?" shouted Neji. "Did I say something wrong?" asked innocently Naruto, not the least bit worried. "Something wrong? Something wrong? You're what's wrong? I'll kill you!" Sasuke roared and charged at Naruto, with great speed. "Shit," thought Kakashi as pulled out a kunai, and try and stop the mad Uchiha. At the same Neji, Hinata, Tenten, Lee, Sai, Sakura and Kiba were all about to move to stop Sasuke. But before any of them could, Killer Bee, Yujito, Okatsu and Fu appeared, where Okatsu and the other girls blocked the group path and stopped them from interfering. Kakashi on the other hand was stopped by Killer Bee, who stood in front of him with a serious look. As Sasuke neared him, Naruto just stood there and waited for his attack. Suddenly, as Sasuke was upon him, Naruto took out his wind sword handle and activated it, and raised it up towards Sasuke's deciding sword. Thanks to his wind sword having the elemental advantage over Sasuke's lightning Chikudo, Naruto's sword was able to neutralize Sasuke lightning and cut through Sasuke's Chikudo, with little difficulty. Also, as he cut through Sasuke's Chikudo, Naruto sidestepped him, so that Sasuke would go by him. After which he then kicked away Sasuke's leg from underneath him, causing him to fall backwards onto his back. Upon which, Naruto stood on Sasuke's chest. Before he could even try anything, Naruto then pointed the wind blade of his sword at Sasuke's neck, who, although couldn't see it, could feel the invisible wind blade. TSK, Sasuke, you really need to learn to control that temper of yours, as it could get you killed or in a very serious situation, like say, trying to kill a Kage of a foreign shinobi nation," spoke Naruto, in a childlike tone, as if he was speaking to a child. As soon as Naruto had Sasuke at his mercy, the 6 teams of root and regular ANBU that had been following Naruto appeared in front of him. "You will let go of Sasuke Taicho, immediately," spoke a root member wearing a leopard-shaped ANBU mask, as he drew out his weapon, along with his comrades, who did the same. "Please remove yourself from Uchiha Sasuke, Raikage Denka, and come with us quietly, where the Hokage can settle this peacefully, Raikage Denka," spoke an ANBU wearing a Baku-shaped mask. "I think not," replied Naruto as he snapped his fingers, where the 12 teams of storm means that had been following them, and protecting Naruto, appeared. Upon which they surrounded the ANBU and root shinobis, with their weapons drawn and ready to fight, surprising everyone, especially ANBU and the root ninjas, as none of them had sensed any of them. Seeing that his storm means had the root and ANBU handled, Naruto refocused his attention on the Uchiha, underneath his foot. "Naruto, that's enough," stated Kakashi, as he took a step forward, only to be stopped by Killer Bee blocking his path by placing his hand on Kakashi's chest and stopping him from moving. "That's as far as you go, motherfucker, yo." Seeing this, Naruto only smirked. Same old Kakashi, sticking up for the Uchiha, even after seeing what he just did. "Naruto, there's no need to escalate this any further," said Kakashi anxiously. "Really, because if I'm not mistaken, the Uchiha here just tried to kill me, without cause or justification, and since I'm a Kage of a foreign village, that tangible to a declaration of war on my village, and I would be well in my rights to kill the Uchiha here and now. That is unless you want to start another war with the Heavenly Alliance." At hearing this, Kakashi and the others got extremely worried, as what Naruto said was indeed true and the last thing they needed to be fighting another war. "Naruto, please, there's no need to kill him. I can assure you that Sasuke will be properly punished for what he did," spoke Kakashi earnestly. "Oh really, like how he was, after I brought him back to the village, where all he got was a slap on the wrist, while I was banished for all my troubles," said Naruto irritably. At this Kakashi couldn't help but wince, as he couldn't deny what Naruto said, as it was true. "Naruto, I can assure you that the Hokage will. The old hag. Please, if she could do anything, he wouldn't be a ninja anymore and be spending his time in the Konoha's strict correctional facility," laughed Naruto. This of course surprised the Konoha group, as the way Naruto called Tsunade, there was no real warmth or affection when he called her that, like when he used to, when he was younger. "But luckily for him, I'm in a merciful mood, so I won't kill him," spoke Naruto, as he looked down coldly at Sasuke, who in turn stared angrily at Naruto, knowing he couldn't do anything without being killed by Naruto. "But don't think for a second that this incident won't be without repercussions." At hearing this, Kakashi sighed with relief at Naruto not killing Sasuke, as regardless of what he thought of Sasuke, he still cared for him, as he was once his student, regardless of how much he had fallen. But even then, he was worried about the repercussion that Naruto mentioned and would take against the village over Sasuke's actions. For attacking a Kage of a foreign village without cause of justification was a serious crime, where Naruto could easily ask for Sasuke's death, or even make Konoha pay a heavy price for it. Soon enough, Naruto took his foot off Sasuke's chest and deactivated his wind sword and placed it back on his utility belt. As Naruto walked away from Sasuke, the young Uchiha was having flashbacks of the night that his clan was killed by his brother. The way that Naruto simply brushed him off and said he wasn't worth killing was just like the way that Itachi said to him that night. After having Naruto take him down so easily and then simply turn his back to him and say he wasn't worth killing was too much for the young Uchiha's pride to take, as he wouldn't stand for it. Quickly Sasuke did a few quick hand seals and then charged up his Chidori, 1,000 birds, which kicked up some dust and charged straight at Naruto. "Sasuke, no!" cried Kakashi, when he saw Sasuke charging at Naruto with his Chidori, after which he quickly maneuvered himself past Killer Bee and went to stop Sasuke, but he knew he would be too late to stop him. When Naruto heard the chirping sound of Sasuke's Chidori and Kakashi's cry, it didn't take a genius to realize what was happening. Naruto then quickly turned around and brought his left hand up to block Sasuke's Chidori, where much to the utter shock of everyone, Sasuke's Chidori didn't stab through Naruto's hand. Instead, it stopped dead when Naruto grabbed hold of Sasuke's hand and the lightning surrounding it, where it was drawn into Naruto's arm. "What the?" said Sasuke in shock. "Who's the dope this time, eh?" "Team," spoke Naruto with a smirk at seeing the shock look on his face, which was mimicked by everyone in the Konoha groups, as no one had ever seen anyone ever block a Chidori attack head-on. "How?" spoke Sasuke, in shock, as he still couldn't understand what happened. "Like I said, who's the dope this time, team? As if you remembered when I used my Inazuma lightning flash, I was able to take in natural lightning into my body, meaning chakra-created lightning would be little trouble for me to take into it. As you see, Inazuma was based on my knowledge of not only Byakurai, white lightning, but of also special lightning redirecting technique, that my clan created, meaning any lightning technique that you use against me is worthless," spoke Naruto. Before he then brought up his right hand and his 2 forward fingers and placed them just below Sasuke's left collarbone, and then continued. "But not only can I absorb the lightning into my body, but I can redirect the lightning that you used against me and send back to you like this. Byakurai!" said Naruto as he then cried out his attack and fired a bolt of lightning from his forefingers into Sasuke's shoulder and right through it, creating a medium-sized hole in it. Kakashi, of course, could only watch this, as when he maneuvered around Killer Bee to try and stop Sasuke from attacking Naruto. He was stopped by Killer Bee, who had spun around and drew out one of his 7 short blades and held it in a reverse grip at Kakashi's neck from behind him, stopping the copy nin in moving any further. When Naruto fired the Byakurai, Sasuke screamed out of pain from the attack, and fell to the ground covering the cauterized hole, next to his arm, with his hand. "Naruto, that wasn't unnecessary," spoke Kakashi as he went next to his former student, after Killer Bee let him go. "You had Sasuke, you didn't need to go that far. TSK, he attacked me again without provocation and from behind no less. Did you really think I would let that go without a penalty? Besides, he should be grateful that he alive. As I could have killed him and there wouldn't have been a thing any one of you could do about it," replied Naruto coldly. "You've changed, Naruto," said Kakashi. What I've become now is what Konoha helped make into when they banished me," answered Naruto simply. "Is that what this is all about, to get back us for what happened to you?" asked Kakashi. "You think I like you prize student there, Piff. As surprising as it is to all of you, Konoha doesn't revolve around my world, since as far as I'm concerned, this village is a distant memory to me, one of which I like nothing more than to forget about," replied Naruto. After saying this, Naruto then looked down to Sasuke and smirked again, infuriating the Uchiha further. "Oh, and Sasuke, I want you to do me a favor and remember this day. I want you to remember how the class dope and loser was able to kick you sorry ass without even breaking a sweat. I also want you to remember how I could have killed you with ease, but I let you live because you weren't worth killing," said Naruto with a cold smirk. As soon as Sasuke heard this, his Sharingan suddenly blazed in anger again, where he tried to get up, but was forced down on the ground by his wound and because of Kakashi, who was making sure that he didn't do anything stupid again. Seeing this, Naruto just smirked again. "I suggest that you stay where you are, Uchiha, because there won't be a third chance," after which he walked away, and signaled Killer Bee and the girls along the storm nins to come with him. The root nins along with the regular ANBU didn't try to stop them, knowing there would be no point in trying. As Naruto walked off with his bodyguards and the storm nins, Yujito suddenly spoke up. "Why didn't you kill that bastard? You had more than enough reason to and there wouldn't be a thing Konoha do about it," spoke Yujito. "Killing Sasuke would be too easy. Beating him down like this is far worse to someone like him, as I wounded his pride. Besides, killing him would only make him a martyr to the civilian population of Konoha and justify their anger towards me. Plus, I would have to listen to the constant bitching and moaning from the civilian council members, demanding I make repercussions for killing their precious Uchiha, which would be more trouble than the momentary satisfaction I would get at ending him. Besides, Sasuke still has some use to me for later on." At this the others just nodded, not fully getting what Naruto had planned, but understood nonetheless. When Naruto left, Kakashi just sighed, and once again cursed himself for his failings when it came to his team. After which he told Hinata, Sakura and the others that they should leave, where he then shunned Shin away to the hospital, so to have Sasuke treated for his wound and then deliver him to Tsunade, where he would most likely be punished for what happened here. 2 hours later, Hokage's office. The doors of the Hokage's office was thrown open and off their hinges, as Uchiha Sasuke fell through them and hit the hallway wall at the other end of the hall, with a large thud, making a large dent in the wall. His sleeveless high-collar black shirt was torn up, his lip was busted, he had 2 matching black eyes, several broken ribs, along with bruises on his body. This injury he received from Naruto, and his shoulder began to bleed into his shirt, even after the medics at the hospital bandaged it. As he slowly stood up, he came face to face with livid Tsunade, who marched out of her office cracking her knuckles and ready to lay an even bigger beat down on the Uchiha. The female Hokage then grabbed him by the strap of his high-collar shirt and lifted into the air. "You stupid, arrogant, little brat! Do you realize what your actions may have caused?" she roared. "You attacked and tried to kill the ruling leader of a foreign shinobi village and leader of the Heavenly Alliance. Wars have been started for far less." In the background, Jiraiya just sat on Tsunade's seat, with his legs crossed and on her desk and his arms folded, as he decided to sit back and watch Tsunade beat the crap out of Sasuke. As he found it kind of nice at not being at the receiving end of her wrath, and to just watch her beat the crap of someone else. After Tsunade picked Sasuke up, she cocked her arm back, ready to send him right through the wall. But before she could, a male voice spoke up. "That's enough, Tsunade." Upon hearing this, Tsunade whipped her head around to see Danzo with two of his Naguns. Upon seeing him, she glared at the one-eyed man. "Stay out of this, Danzo. This little arrogant prick attacked Naruto and could have started a war between us and the Heavenly Alliance, and quite frankly I'm more than ready to kill him right now and give his sorry corpse to Naruto, to keep him from declaring war on us." "That is out of your jurisdiction, Tsunade," spoke Danzo. "The hell it is. I'm the Hokage and he is a shinobi of this village, meaning I have direct control of him," shouted Tsunade. "Sasuke is a member of Root, meaning he is under my command and only I can decide his punishment," replied Danzo. At this, Tsunade narrowed her eyes in anger, but then a snort and threw Sasuke at his feet. "I suggest that you keep your pets on a leash, Danzo, and although I can't officially punish him, I can restrict his movements, meaning as of this moment he forbidden to leave this village and be suspended from all duties until I approve. Which won't be any time soon if I have anything to say about it," she said and walked back into her office. Danzo of course narrowed his eyes as he knew that Tsunade wouldn't budge of this and would have her ANBU monitor both his and Sasuke's movements even more than normal, to make sure Sasuke wouldn't be able to leave the village or sneak out to do missions for him. Not to mention Sasuke's attack on Naruto would seriously complicate his plans to have Sasuke become the next Hokage, as the Jonin Council as well as the Fire Daimyo would be hesitant to approve or support any Hokage who acted so recklessly and attack a foreign Kage without cause of justification. As Danzo thought over how he could salvage this situation, he looked at the young Uchiha as he stood up. "We're going," he said simply. Even though Sasuke didn't pay attention to him, he did obey. Sasuke took no more than 5 steps before his chakra spiked up. Sensing Sasuke chakra spike, Danzo became curious and turned. When he did, he saw what got Sasuke so irritated, for there stood the Raikage, with his 4 bodyguards and 4 storm shinobis. The low growl coming off Sasuke did not bother Naruto, and raised his hand up to calm his people. As he walked past Danzo and Sasuke in the hallway, he stopped right next to Danzo. "I suggest that you keep your lapdog there on a shorter leash, Danzo, or else I've no choice but to put him down myself," spoke Naruto coolly, after which he then walked past them and headed for Tsunade's office. Danzo of course did not reply to Naruto's comment, but stared at him with a cold, calculating eye. Danzo knew that Naruto would be a problem to his plans for the future. He had read the different reports of the battle between Naruto and Orochimaru and his allies, as well as his battle of the 4 revived Hokages. Combined with the fact of his 2 bloodlines and of the report of him mastering the Kyuubi's chakra along with his other abilities, he was the most dangerous person in the ninja world. He cursed the Sandaime for shooting down his proposal to make that boy into a living weapon, as with the legendary Ramberka, Stormbreaker, limit of the Stormcaller clan aka the Uzumaki clan. Combined with his regenerative bloodline, his own power and that of the Kyuubis, Naruto would have led Konoha in an age of rule over the entire shinobi world. But instead he had become the greatest threat to Konoha that it had ever seen. "We're leaving, Sasuke," said Danzo to Sasuke, who was still glaring at the direction that Naruto went. After which the 2 agents put their hands on Sasuke's shoulders indicating him to come, where he then shrugged them off and stalked off, with Danzo and the 2 agents. After Danzo and Sasuke left, Naruto and his people entered Tsunade's office, who in turn was currently talking to Jiraiya. When Tsunade turned around and saw Naruto, she was about to race over and hug the life out of Naruto, and to punch him in the face for making them think he was dead. But before she could do any of that, she was stopped in her tracks by the cold, piercing stare that Naruto was giving her, the exact opposite of his normally warm, cheerful blue eyes. Before Tsunade could say anything to him, Naruto spoke up. "I'm not here for pleasantries, Hokage-san. So I will make this short. I have some official business with both you and your council, and so I would like to have a meeting with them in the next hour. Oh, of course, spoke Tsunade in shock, as she half expected him to call her Bachan or something, instead of treating her so coolly and officially like this. Good, I'll take my leave then, replied Naruto officially and turned around to walk out of the office. But before he could, Jiraiya suddenly cried out. Naruto, wait! That is Raikage-sama to you, Toad, and I've nothing worth saying to you, said Naruto in an icy cold tone, as he turned around slightly to look at Jiraiya and give him an equally icy cold stare, making the Toad Sannin flinch. After which Naruto walked out of the office with the storm guards and Yujito, and the others following closely behind him, leaving the two Sanins alone in the office and reflect over what just happened. 1 hour later in the council chambers, after Naruto asked Tsunade for a meeting with her and the council, Tsuanda sent word to the clan heads and all the other council members. Soon after, the council members all gathered together, all except for Uchiha Sasuke, as Tsunade had given orders to her Anbu that he was to be detained in his home, until Naruto and new Kumo shinobis had left the village. As the last thing she needed was the new Kumo shinobis going after Sasuke, once they heard that he attacked Naruto. Not to mention she didn't need the Uchiha going to attack Naruto again during the council meeting. As the council members entered the council chambers, a dozen or so Konoha Jonin, Anbu and the members surrounded the room. These were among their few remaining still active shinobis, as the majority of their remaining forces were in no condition to be on active duty. Once the council members entered the chamber and took their seats on the council table, Hamaru decided to ask what everyone was wondering. Tsunade-san, may I ask why you've called us all here for this meeting? I'm afraid that I wasn't the one who called for this meeting, answered Tsunade. Then who did, Hokage-sama? Asked Inoichi. He did, said Tsunade as she indicated towards the person entering the chambers, through large double doors of the council chambers. When the council members looked, they saw Naruto enter the chambers, along with Killer Bee, Shuga Liang, Sayuri, Yorichi, Mitsuhide, and Naruto's 8 wives Okatsu, Yuffie, Yujito, Fu Takara, Soifin Tomo and Taira. After entering the chambers, 2 Jonin closed the door to the room and Naruto took the seat that faced the council, with Shuga Liang, his wives and the others standing behind him. When Naruto entered the room, he received many cold glares from the remaining 3 civilian council members, as well as narrowed stares from Koharu and Danzo. He of course ignored them, although he did slightly enjoy at how angry and annoyed they were with him still being alive. He also couldn't wait to see their reactions at what he was planning on doing next, as he was going to enjoy every second of it. Thank you all for coming for this meeting. Now, before we get to the matter at hand, as to why I asked for this gathering, I will allow you to ask some questions that you no doubt have, spoke Naruto. At first no one on the council said or did any, but eventually Hamura decided to speak up. Very well then, if you will, we would like you to tell us how you are able to use chakra, as it was sealed when you were banished from the village. Naruto of course expected this question to be the first one. The reason I'm able to use chakra is simple really. When I was found by Mitsuhide Sensei and Sayuri Sense, and they learned that I was Jinchuriki. Mitsuhide Sensei came up with the idea of having the Kyuubi flood my body entirely with its chakra, as due to its potency and the amount, it overloaded the chakra suppressing seal, breaking the seal, along with the one that prevented me from speaking about Konoha to others. At this both Danzo and Koharu frowned as they thought for sure that the chakra suppressing seal that was placed on Naruto was strong enough to keep Naruto from using the Kyuubi chakra. And before anyone asked about that little seal that was placed on me, which would cause the Kyuubi's chakra to burst out all at once. When the Akatsuki captured me and killed both me and them, when it was released, was destroyed, spoke Naruto, surprising Danzo and Koharu at him knowing about it. Don't look so surprised. Shuga Liang Sensei found the seal on me and removed it. It wasn't a bad idea, but it would never have worked. As the Akatsuki aren't stupid and would have checked my seal for anything like that, if they had captured me after I was banished, spoke Naruto. At hearing this, both Danzo and Koharu narrowed their eyes, as they didn't like being told off by someone they considered inferior. Okay then, why did you make us all think you were dead? Asked Jiraiya, who was standing behind Tsunade. It was because I knew it was the only way that I would be safe from those 2 over there, spoke Naruto as he looked at Danzo and Koharu, indicating them. I knew that as long as Konoha believed that I was alive, I would have to watch out for not only the Akatsuki, but also Danzo's goon squads, who would either leak my location to the Akatsuki, in the hope of Danzo's plan in working, or simply capture me, in the hope of brainwashing me into become a weapon for him. So after my run-in with Itachi, I left enough evidence to make you all believe that I was captured by the Akatsuki, and even if they denied it, no one would believe what an international wanted group of S-class criminals. Leaving that I would only have Akatsuki to watch out for, spoke Naruto. Upon hearing this, both Danzo and Koru were furious at being duped so easily by Naruto, while everyone else had to admit it was quite clever of Naruto, as he had left just enough evidence to suggest the belief, and with the toads in on the lie, backing him up. No one would have figured out that Naruto was alive until he revealed himself. Fine, but tell us this, how is that girl over there able to summon the salamanders? Asked Tsunade, as she was wondering how Akatsuki could summon the salamanders, as the contract was lost when Hanzo and his family were wiped out during the coup in Amigakure, Hidden Rain. That questions can only be answered by Akatsuki, replied Naruto, as he looked to his wife/bodyguard. At first Akatsuki didn't answer, but after a minute or so, she spoke up. The reason why I can summon the salamanders is because I'm the granddaughter of Sansho no Hanzo, Hanzo the salamander, answered Akatsuki, shocking the council. That's impossible. The new leader of AIM was said to have wiped out every member of Hanzo family years ago, along with all his allies and supporters and their families, replied the shocked Hokage. That is correct, as I'm not an official member of his family, said Akatsuki, with some mild disgust at the thought. What do you mean by not official? Asked Hinata. At this Akatsuki's eyes hardened before she spoke. What I mean is about 50 years ago during a mission for my former clan, the Saihai. My grandmother was captured and raped by Hanzo and left for dead by him. Later on she was found and brought back to my clan's compound. When my grandmother learned that she was pregnant with my mother and decided to keep her, later on when the Raikage learned of my heritage he gave me the contract, believing I should have it. But where did you get the contract? Asked Jiraiya. About a year ago I sent in an intelligence team to AIM, to gather intelligence on the happenings of the village. During the mission, one of my agents came across the contract and brought it back to me, answered Naruto. Wait. You were able to send in an infiltration team into AIM, and they were able to get back to you with information about AIM? Asked Jiraiya in surprise, as he had been trying to get information about the happenings of AIM for years. But much like when gathering information about New Kumo and the Heavenly Alliance, he had no luck. Correct, replied Naruto. Then do you know who the new leader of Amigakure is? Asked Tsunade. Yes, but I won't tell you. But why? Asked the female Kage. I've no obligation or wish to do so, answered Naruto simply, causing many people to frown with annoyance, as for several years, Konoha had been trying to gather information on the happenings of their neighboring shinobi village. But each time they sent in a team, they were caught and killed, and any other source they had came up dry. Fine then, but what about your bloodlines? How is it that you possess the Ranbur-Ka limit, and is your regenerative ability because of the Kyuubi or an actually bloodline? Asked Choza. Ah, well, before I answer that question perhaps we should speak, when we're with people more scrupulous, replied Naruto. What do you mean? Asked Konohamaru, not getting what Naruto was saying. Oh, you don't already know? Asked Naruto, feigning surprise. It seems that Konoha's NA division isn't doing its job very well in keeping Konoha secure and safe. At hearing this, Danzo narrowed his one visible eye at Naruto jab at him and his root division. To put it simply, Konoha has a leak, said Naruto simply. That's a lie, stated Danzo, as if there was a leak in Konoha, he would know about it and would have dealt with it. Oh really? Said Naruto with a smile, where he then took out a file out of the inner pocket of his coat and threw it towards Tsunade. What is this? Asked Tsunade, as she looked at the file on the table. Open it and you will see who Yumol is and the proof showing that he is what I say he is, replied the blonde Raikage, where when said Mole heard this, he became very worried. When Tsunade opened the file, she saw photographs showing council member Ase Haida speaking with an Odo shinobi, and handing files to Odo shinobis along with accepting money from them, and even some where he was speaking with Kabuto. Along with the photographs, were documents detailing many trading envoys belonging to Haida entering Uno Kuni, Hot Spring Country, and then turning to enter Tano Kuni, Ricefield Country, along with other things detailing similar matters. When Tsunade looked at these documents and photographs, she narrowed her eyes and looked at Haida, who looked like a child caught with his hand in the cookie jar. As you can see, council member Haida has been dealing under the table with Orochimaru, selling you out for profit, my guess ever since Konoha went into its economic decline, spoke Naruto. That's a lie, spoke Haida nervously, as he could see everyone was staring at him with suspicion. He fabricating all this, to get back at me for having him banished. Well, the Hokage here is welcome to look over the evidence I have handed her, and run her own investigate, and see if you're guilty or not, said Naruto. At this, Tsunade then ordered 2 ANBU nearby to take Haida away for interrogation, with Ino, and find out if he has been selling Konoha out, upon which the ANBU took Haida away, before he could even think about trying to run away. Once Haida had been taken away, Tsunade turned to look at Naruto. How did you know that Haida was spying for Orochimaru? Well, to be honest, I found it funny that Haida was able to maintain his lavish lifestyle, despite the fact that Konoha was suffering a severe financial crisis. Due to the number of allies and trading nations you lost over the years after you banished me, said Naruto, adding his own little jab at the council, which made several of them frown. After which I had my head of intelligence investigate the matter, replied Naruto simply. Allow me to introduce you to him. Masato, would you please show yourself? Asked Naruto. As soon as Naruto said this, a tall man, wearing a tattered red cape, with crimson eyes and long black hair and a red headband over his head with his bangs emerging over it, and carrying twin short swords on his back, appeared from the dark corner of the rafters. Naturally, everyone in the room was shocked when they saw the man, especially the shinobis guarding the room, especially those in the rafters and the ceilings, as no one had even sensed him. As soon as they saw Masato, the shinobi stiffened, fearing that he was an assassin, but they quickly stood down, when Tsunade held out her hand, telling them to stand down. But as surprised as everyone was, none were more surprised, as when Jiraiya saw Masato, he immediately recognized him. It's you! We meet again, Jiraiya-san, spoke Masato. Jiraiya, you know him? Asked Tsunade, when she turned to her former teammate in wonder. Yeah, I do. He was the one that told me about Orochimaru's attack on Konoha, replied Jiraiya. At hearing this, Tsunade turned and looked at Naruto with an intense stare, while Naruto himself held an unreadable look on his features, not giving Tsunade anything. As none of it made sense to her, as Naruto clearly held Konoha in disdain, yet he gave them valuable information that gave them a fighting chance against Orochimaru. Before Tsunade could even ask him why he had Masato give Jiraiya the information, Naruto spoke up. Now then, as Choza-san had asked, my Shinjukokai body renewal is a bit of both actually, answered Naruto, whereupon seeing the confused looks on everyone's face, he decided to explain further. When I used the Kyuubi's chakra and flooded my entire body with it, to overload the seals on me, there was a side effect to it, where I came to have the Kyuubi's healing power, but much more enhanced than before. And your Ranbaka, how is it that you have it now and not when you were here in Konoha? Asked Inuzuka Hana. Well, as many of you may know, my clan was a very small, yet very powerful, with our bloodline, although only a small percentage, mainly the main branch members had the Ranbaka limit and could master it fully. Although some branch members had it, others would be highly skilled and powerful in a singular elemental affinity, and others would have bloodlines, which came from the Ranbaka. Bloodlines like the Hayaton, Ranton and Kurangazan Daparasu, Crying Thunderpulse, who then separate from us, and formed their own clans later on. But because of our limited numbers of those with Ranbaka, we hid our true name and made sure no one knew who we really were and where we lived. We hid under the persona of an average shinobi clan. Sadly, though, the few surviving members of an enemy clan, which my clan destroyed, had somehow learned of our true identity and where we lived. They then infiltration and my clan's stronghold and positioned themselves around it. My clan were able to kill them all, but sadly not in time to stop the large-scale seal that they created around the stronghold, which affected everyone in my clan. The seal they placed on my clan was a special genetic seal, which was specifically designed to target and seal away bloodlines. The seal was even passed on through conception, meaning later generation would not have it either. Although even with my clan's bloodline sealed away, we still possessed our strong bodies and our incredible longevity, which we became famed for. When my clan realized that they had lost their bloodline, they decided to focus on the art of Fuinjutsu. So in the hope of one day removing the seal, as well as to keep our enemies from learning who we really were and keep our clan from being destroyed by our enemies. Ironically, though, my clan was destroyed by the very persona that we took to protect ourselves, as we became renowned in the art of Fuinjutsu, where other nations became fearful of the power of Fuinjutsu and destroyed us, as you know. Fortunately, though, the research that my clan dealt with into removing the genetic seal on us was not lost, as my mother possessed a copy of it, where with Namake's help, they eventually found a way to break the seal that prevented my clan from using our bloodline. Unfortunately, she could not use it on herself, as she was pregnant with me and feared what would happen to me if she used it. Hence she stored away and planned to use it later, after giving birth to me. Sadly though, she did not have the chance, as she died during the Kyuubi attack. Spoke Naruto. And how did you get the plans to break the seal, let alone learn all this? Asked the ANB commander. In the Namikaze estate, after I broke into the Hokage's secret cabinet, right before I was officially banished from here, said Naruto simply, causing several people to frown, especially Tsunade, as she realized that she really need to update her security if Naruto could easily break in. Jiraiya, did you know any of this? Asked Tsunade, when she turned to her teammate, who was standing next to her, for the meeting. I had no clue, either Minato nor Kushina shared any of this with me, replied Jiraiya with a slight frown. Oh, and before any think that the old hag might have my bloodline, due to her grandmother being a member of the main branch of my clan, the genetic seal would block any latent abilities that she would have. The only people that know how to break the genetic seal are myself and a few select others. Plus, even if you could unlock it, the stress of breaking the seal would kill her, as she hardly in her prime anymore, and even if she did survive, it would take her years to master and control the Ranbaka limit, and that if she has it to begin with, said Naruto, for although he was still angry at Tsunade for hiding the truth about his family from him, he didn't hate her nor did he want her dead. Naturally, Danzo and Koharu frowned at hearing this, as any ideas they had of using Tsunade blood and gaining Ranbaka were dashed because of that, as if it took the Uzumaki clan, a clan that was famed throughout the shinobi world for their mastery in Fuinjutsu, over 100 years to break the genetic seal. Then there was no telling how long it would take them to break the seal, if they ever could. Now I think I've answered enough of your questions, and it's time to get down to one of the matters at hand, spoke Naruto in a serious tone. And what would they be? Asked Yakumo. Well, the first would be compensations for the attempted illegal arrest on my person when I was unconscious in the hospital, answered Naruto. At this, Danzo and Koharu frowned, as they knew that Hojo Akira's stupid actions would come back to bite them, and it did. What is it that you want as compensations? Asked Tsunade, knowing that if they didn't make compensations to Naruto then it could start a war. Nothing much, 10 S-rank missions would be satisfactory, answered Naruto, making the civilian council members roar out in rage. You're out of your mind, if you think that we're going to give you half of our S-rank missions reserves, roared Ashikaga Shin. I can assure you that I'm not, and you've little choice in the matter, given your situation, as shinobis belonging to this village did try to unlawfully arrest me, spoke Naruto. You destroyed a third of our village and you entered the village when you were banished, cried Amako Taichi. My banishment became null and void when I became the Raikage, since as a Kage I have instant diplomatic immunity. As for destroying the village, a third of the village, it collateral damage during a war, replied Naruto simply. Hokage-sama, you can't seriously accept, spoke Shin with disbelief, making Danzo and Koharu frown further, highlighting their wrinkles further and making the civilian council members fume. We've no choice but to, sighed Tsunade. Now on to the next matter of hand, the attempt of my life, by one Uchiha Sasuke, said Naruto with a growing smirk, at seeing the angry looks on the shinobi elders' faces. Now under normal circumstances, that would be an immediately declaration of war on New Kumo and the Heavenly Alliance. But I've decided to be magnanimous, and I won't declare war on Konoha and have it destroyed, said Naruto, causing the several council members to sigh with relief, although other members knew that there would be a but to come in. But Konoha will have to pay a severe fine for Uchiha Sasuke actions, finished Naruto. What kind of fine? Asked Tsunade, fearing what Naruto's answer would be. I would say 25 S-rank missions would settle things nicely, answered Naruto, where when Naruto said this, the civilian council member roared bloody murder, shouting out curses and how they wouldn't pay. Naruto of course just watched the show and said nothing. Naruto, we can't pay that amount, we don't have near that amount of S-ranked missions to hand over to you, said Tsunade. Well, I'm not unreasonable, as you can hand over the number of other ranked missions that make up the value of an S-rank mission. Like 3 A-rank missions being worth a single S-rank mission, and if you run out of A-rank missions you do the same with the B-rank missions and so on, said Naruto. Natural this got the civilian and shinobi elder very angry, as going by what Naruto said Konoha would have to hand over a large amount of their already limited numbered missions, including all their S, A and most of their B-ranked missions. Once Tsunade reluctantly agreed, much to the anger of Koharu and Danzo, Naruto then spoke again. Good, now that those matters are settled, we can get to the main matter at hand. Which would be? Asked Tsunade. To put it simply, I want what is mine, replied Naruto. I beg your pardon? Asked Tsunade. Don't play with me, Tsunade, you won't like the results, said Naruto as he narrowed his eyes. Is that a threat? Asked Danzo as he narrowed his eyes, where his agent stiffed. It's a fact, answered Naruto simply. Give me my inheritance, and you have no problems. You can keep the Namake's name, as I have no need of it. All I want are the scrolls and resources that are owed me. Simple greed, Naruto? Asked Tsunade with a disappointed look. Believe what you will, as I don't really care, said Naruto. We won't just hand over Konoha property to a foreigner, as you're no longer a citizen of Konoha, Naruto, said Koharu. Don't even try the Konoha property bit. But if you won't give it to me, maybe we should take this dispute to the Fire Daimyo. See what is stronger and right, my blood, or your sense of entitlement, replied Naruto. At this Koharu and Danzo frowned, as it wasn't uncommon for disputes over clan and village rights to be decided by the daimyo, and as much as Koharu and Danzo hated it, in this situation blood would win out over allegiance. Especially if Lightning Daimyo got involved, they couldn't even play the missing Nin card, as Naruto banished from the village. Now will you hand them over to me or not? Asked Naruto. I'm sorry, Naruto, but our village doesn't have the funds to give you the full amount of your inheritance, and even with your claim of blood we cannot hand over the jutsu that reside in the estate, for fear that you would use them against us, spoke Tsunade sadly. As she did want to give Naruto what rightfully belonged to Naruto, but since he was the head of a rival village now, she could not give them to him, as she was still the Hokage of Konoha. Even if she could let him have them, she knew that Koharu, Danzo and most likely Hamura would be against it, and find a way to overrule her. So you will deny what rightfully belongs to me? Asked Naruto as he narrowed his eyes in anger. Yes, replied a guilt-ridden Tsunade. She really did feel like garbage for further forsaking Naruto and deny him what should be his. But as Hokage she couldn't let such valuable scrolls go, no mention of the Namake's and Uzumaki fortunes, especially to foreign village. If she did, Danzo and Koharu, who would use that as an excuse to have her removed as Hokage and most likely have her replaced by Sasuke, which would be disastrous for Konoha. Danzo and Koharu of course nodded their heads in approval and smirked in satisfaction, as the good of Konoha outweighed what Naruto believed rightfully belonged to him. Naruto was of slightly miffed that Tsunade denied him his inheritance, but not surprised, as he expected something like this. Well then I guess that Konoha will be destroyed, replied Naruto simply, shocking everyone at what he just said. You would start a war between us, just to get your inheritance, said a shocked Tsunade as she couldn't believe that Naruto would start a war to such a reason. At this Naruto simply smirked. Wars have been fought for far less. Besides, I never said I would declare war to get my inheritance, nor would I ever think of doing such a thing for such a trivial thing. But you said Tsunade in confusion. I said that Konoha would be destroyed if they didn't give me my inheritance, and there are many different ways to destroy a village other than by declaring war and using military force, spoke Naruto calmly, whereupon seeing the confused looks on most people's faces he decided to explain further. As I'm sure Jiraiya has most likely told you, the Heavenly Alliance has invaded and taken control of Odogakure and Kirigakure, as well as their respected home nations. With Kiri and Mizuno Kuni now under our control, along with our attack on the naval docks belonging to Iwa and Tsuchi no Kuni, the Heavenly Alliance now is the dominating naval force in the elemental continent. Meaning we have complete control of all the seas, both militarily wise and economically wise, hence it wouldn't be hard for me to put up an embargo on both Konoha and Hai no Kuni, where all the Heavenly Alliance members and nations allied to us will cease all trade with both your village and Hai no Kunai, as well as cease any and all trade with any nation that is allied to you or even trade with you, where the only way for them to re-establish trade with us would be to break any and all trade agreements or alliances with you. Considering how large the Heavenly Alliance is and how many allies we have, along with our control over the seas and the fact that most nations around you are members of the Alliance now, it would be only a matter of time until every nation in the elemental continents agrees to our demands and ceases trade with you and Hai no Kuni, spoke Naruto, shocking everyone on the council, and then continued on. Along with that, I can also put on a great deal of political pressure on Fire Daimyo, as I'm very friendly with many of the daimyos in the Heavenly Alliance and the rulers of other nations allied to the Heavenly Alliance, like the daimyo of Umi no Kuni, Sea Country, King Michiru of Tsuki no Kuni, Moon Country, Lady Daimyo Toki of Tori no Kuni, Bird Country, Lady Daimyo Keo of Mitsu no Kuni, Honey Country, and Lord Mifune of Tetsu no Kuni, Iron Country. Also, I'm sure I can get the support of the new daimyo of Mizu no Kuni, the soon-to-be daimyo of Ta no Kuni, Ricefield Country, Prince Machi, and the daimyo of Nami no Kuni, Wave Country, considering I help save or free their individual nations. Not to mention I can be certain of having the support of my wives Lady Daimyo Kicho of Kaminari no Kuni, Lightning Country, Lady Daimyo Korki of Haru/Yuki no Kuni, Springs/Snow Country, and Lady Daimyo Haruna of Na no Kuni, Vegetable Country. Spoke Naruto. You're married to 3 daimyos? Cried Koharu in shock. Yes, along with being engaged to High Priestess Cheyenne of Oni no Kuni, Demon Country, who will no doubt support my claim as well, replied Naruto, further shocking the people on the council and saddening Hinata. So I'm sure you can easily image the level of political pressure I can bring down on the Fire Daimyo, where combined with the embargo, I would have the alliance place on High no Kuni and Konoha. It would be only a matter of time before he crumbles under the pressure, and has to agree to my demands, which would be to sever all funding, financial and economic support from Konoha, explained Naruto. At hearing this, the civilian council members began to get extremely worried, as they knew that if what Naruto said was true, then they, the civilian members, would be ruined financially. The 3 shinobi elders also grew concerned, as they knew that this could do irreparable amount of damage to Konoha. And considering how things are going to turn against Konoha in the next few days, you can be certain that things are only going to get worse for you, spoke Naruto with an ever-growing smirk. What do you mean by that? Asked Danzo as he narrowed his eye. Well, quite simply, I've been writing a little book about myself, about my time in Konoha, when I was growing up, and I released out copies of it throughout the continent. I even gave out free advance copies to all the daimyos, feudal lords, and influential men of every nation who you still do business with, along with every other nation in the continent. Within the next few weeks, every person in the continent will know what Konoha did to the son of their hero, the Yandame Hokage, and my book is extremely detailed in how I was treated, where it even names many of those who attacked me, spoke Naruto. We'll deny them, as simple smearing tactics to ruining the reputation of Konoha, retorted Koharu, but quickly became worried when she saw Naruto smirk. I'm afraid they won't work, as with my book I will also supply the daimyos and the others with copies of these, said Naruto as he took out some folders from his coat and threw them at Tsunade, where Tsunade quickly opened them and looked at Naruto in surprise. These are copies of your medical files. Where on earth did you get them? Correct, and in those files, they give detailed descriptions of all the injuries I suffered from my attacks in Konoha, and they can be proven to be legitimate by the stamps from Konoha Hospital. Hence you cannot deny the claims that are made in my book and in those files, as they prove what I said happened. As for how I got them, well, to put it simply, I got them when I visited Konoha earlier, answered Naruto. You stole them, cried Council Member Shin. I wouldn't say stolen, more like reclaimed, as those files are on me, so I have a right to have them if I want them, replied Naruto, although what he didn't say was that his bolt needs took more than just his medical files. Once the books are fully released, Konoha's reputation will be in the mud and will be so bad that you'd be lucky to be hired to weed someone's lawns. Not to mention, once the embargo has been put into place and the Fire Daimyo has crumbled from the pressure that the other daimyos will put on him, and agreed to my demands, Konoha's demise will be only a matter of time, as you village's financial and economic structure will soon collapse. With the recompenses that you will have to pay for the attack on me, along with the extremely limited mission requests that you will receive, once everyone knows the truth about Konoha actions towards me. As people tend to take things badly when they hear things like children being beaten. Not to mention the cost of repairs to the village from the war, all adding up to a very high number, and even if you somehow get enough missions you won't have enough shinobis to take them and guard the village, said Naruto, with a sinister smirk, where he then turned to his left side to Zhuge Liang. Given the recompense of missions they have to give me, along with the cost of repairs to the village, the loss of missions Konoha will lose, after everyone hears how it villagers and shinobis beats up a 12-year-old boy. Not to mention the loss of funding and financial support from the Fire Daimyo. How long do you think Konoha's economy will last before it collapses along with the village, sensei? Asked Naruto. Given everything, I would hazard to guess 6 to 8 months at best, replied the famed sleeping dragon. 6 to 8 months, really, I would have thought the last half that long, said Naruto, feigning surprise as he was enjoying seeing the looks of disbelief and anger on the people who had him banished 10 years ago. That's if the other smaller villages leave them alone for that long, as it's fairly certain that the other villages will attempt to attack Konoha in its weakened state, in the hope of becoming one of the 5 great shinobi nations. Continued Zhuge Liang. At hearing this, the council's worries grew, as it was indeed highly possible that the smaller villages would attack, where given their current state, their chances of fighting off another attack, even one from one of the smaller shinobi village, were not very good. You think that you can intimidate and threaten us into giving what you think is yours? Spoke Koharu angrily. I don't think I can. I know I can, replied Naruto. We won't let you. We will, spoke Ashikaga Shin. You what? Asked Naruto. Declare war on us. By all means go ahead. It would only be putting the final nail on Konoha's coffin. As of right now, your surviving forces that are still able to fight are at what? 10-15%, while the rest are in the hospital too injured or exhausted to put up any kind of fight. You wouldn't last an hour against our forces, and even if you do attack, any action that we will take against you will be justified. As we'll have the public support of the other nations, for as far they'll see, we'll be an ungrateful village attacking the village that helped save them, all because of their bigotry grudge against me, said Naruto with a slight chuckle before he continued on. Not to mention, if you did attack me, you wouldn't be just fighting New Kumo, you would also have to fight every other shinobi village in the Heavenly Alliance or allied to it, along with the samurai of Tetsu no Kuni, due to our mutual defensive pact, where if either of us is attacked unprovoked by another nation, then we'll come to each other's defense, and I can assure you, Suna will not come to your aid this time, and would be more likely side with us. Especially since Gaara has asked for an alliance between Suna and the Heavenly Alliance, said Naruto, shocking Tsunade and the council. Suna is betraying us, spoke Choza in surprise. I wouldn't really put it like that, as Suna hasn't been really your ally for a while. The only reason they even helped you was because they'd a score to settle with Orochimaru and Oto. They have no real obligation to you, and they see the value of allying themselves with us, replied a smirking Naruto. Oh, and before anyone here think it might be a bright idea to arrange a little accident for me when on my way back to New Kumo, let me remind you that this village will be most likely blamed for it. Where I'm sure that Jiraiya has told you all as well how much the people of New Kumo care for me, hence I believe it would be obvious that they would be greatly unhappy at my sudden death after visiting my former homeland here. You should also know that I have already named my successor, so that in the event that anything should happen to me, he will immediately take my place as Raikage, and I think you'd be also interested to know that he is the only person in New Kumo whose strength, power, and skill can rival my own. I'm sure that Jiraiya has even already told you about him. Seiwa Anasu the Kumo no Isuryu, Ice Dragon of Kumo, or as the people of Mizu no Kuni and Kirigakure are call him now Korisui no Kami, God of Ice and Water, spoke Naruto. Enjoyed the shocked look on Jiraiya's face. Seeing Jiraiya's face, Tsunade turned fully to look at her former teammate. Jiraiya, you know something about him? Yeah, he was the one who led the invasion of Mizu no Kuni and Kirigakure. He also single-handedly conquered the city port of Serio, along with the Mizu no Kuni Western Fleet, numbering over 200 ships. He did it by bombarding the city with giant ice spikes from the sky, along with freezing the dock and the city over with ice, where no one could even get out of the buildings they were in, forcing the lord ruling the city port to surrender, spoke Jiraiya, shocking everyone on the council at the fact that one man could conquer an entire city by himself, as well as an entire armada. Not only that, but it made many nervous at the fact that there was someone else that was as strong as Naruto in New Kumo. I'm impressed that you even heard about that. I guess all that time you spent gallivanting, when I was growing up, wasn't a total waste after all, spoke Naruto with a slight sneer, which made Jiraiya wince at Naruto's jab at him being a lousy godfather to him. After which Naruto then turned his attention away from his former teacher/godfather. Now as saying, not only would my untimely death result in the anger of my village, but you would also have to deal with the fury of wives, or to be more precise, my wives who are daimyos. As I'm sure that killing the husband of the rulers of 3 nations, who also happens to be the fiancé of another, would not go well for Konoha. Meaning you would not only have to face the armies of New Kumo and its shinobi allies, but also the combined armies of Haru/Yuki no Kuin, Oni no Kuni, Kaminari no Kuni, Na no Kuni, thereby unleashing a wave of fury, anger and rage, of the likes Konoha has never seen before, and I can assure you, they would wipe Konoha off the map. This of course made Koharu and Danzo furious, as Naruto was basically rubbing it in their faces that they couldn't touch him without having all of the Heavenly Alliance screaming out for their blood and leveling the entire village. Oh, and one more thing, said Naruto, as he turned to the two remaining civilian members on the council. If any of you think of trying the same kind of stunt that Hojo Akira tried with the shinobis you have here, believing that capturing me will keep the Alliance from attacking you and controlling it, then let me remind you that I'm back to full strength, meaning that there's not a shinobi alive in this village that can stand up to me in a fight. Also, I have my 4 bodyguards here, 3 of them being Jinchurikis, while Okatsu holds the Salamander contract, one of the strongest summons known. She is also an extremely skilled shinobi, where she is skilled enough to give even you a run for your money, old hag, said Naruto as he looked at Tsunade. Along with them, I have my other wives as well as Masato here, who are all highly skilled shinobis, who are capable of taking on any of your best shinobis. Also, I have Sayuri-sensei, who is an A-rank shinobi and Suhide an S-rank shinobi, along with Shuga Liang-sensei, who is a Kage-level shinobi, whose reputation you're all familiar with, and if they're not enough to convince you otherwise, then these people will, spoke Naruto. Upon which, he then snapped his fingers, where 80 storm means then appeared out of the wall like ghosts, from behind the Konoha shinobis along the wall and behind the shinobis in the rafters of the ceiling. 12. Several of the 80 storm means then quickly came up from behind the Konoha ninjas, both along the walls and up in the rafters of the ceiling, brought their kunais, tantos, and katanas to the Konoha ninjas' necks, keeping them from moving. The remainder of the 80 storm means then quickly surrounded the Konoha council. Naruto, what is the meaning of this? Cried Tsunade as she stood up. Just some added protection, as you hardly expect me to have such a light guard with me, when I'm surrounded by shinobis who most likely want me dead, given how I was attacked twice by shinobis of this village, said Naruto with a cheeking smile. Oh, and I wouldn't try anything if any of you thinking of resisting, as these people around you are from my elite storm unit, meaning they're special trained to fight and take down elite shinobis like many of you here. But don't worry, no harm will come to any of you, as long as you don't try anything against me or any of them. Danzo of course narrowed his eyes at seeing all his agents captured, as everyone in the room was basically at Naruto's mercy. Now I ask one more time, will you hand over my inheritance to me, or will I have to follow up with my threat? Spoke Naruto serious. At this, Tsunade sighed, as regardless of their current situation with Naruto storm means, Naruto could bring down Konoha's economy, along with the village itself, without lifting a finger. Very well, we will relinquish control of the Namake's estate to you, spoke Tsunade, ignoring the protests of Danzo, Koharu, and the civilian council members. Oh, I already have control of the estate itself, as before I came here I took down the barrier around the estate and sent my shinobis to secure it and everything in it. I just want you to hand over the money, since only the Hokage can release my mother's and Namake's frozen accounts. Along with them, I want the letters and documents in your secret cabinet, belonging to my mother and Namake's, said Naruto. Fine, but we don't have enough currency in the village to give your full inheritance, explained Tsunade. Well then I sure we can come to some kind of arrangement, like say giving me half your annual funding from the Fire Daimyo and have half the payments of all your missions, said Naruto smiling. You can't be serious, spoke Council Member Shin. Very much so, replied Naruto. So you expecting us to give up half our funding and our mission payments, until we paid back your entire inheritance to you, spoke Council Member Taichi angrily. With interest, and before you refuse, it's non-negotiable, you either accept or you will face the consequences, spoke Naruto seriously. This is extortion, cried Koharu furiously. I prefer to call it good business, as I get what I want and Konoha gets to survive a little longer, we all benefit from it, replied Naruto with a cunning smile, knowing they had no choice but to give in. Once Tsunade agreed, Naruto then was about to get off his seat, as his business was done with, but before he could, Tsunade spoke up again. Wait! Naruto, there's something I wish to ask you. Which would be? Asked Naruto with an unreadable look. I want to petition again, for an alliance between Konoha and the Heavenly Alliance, spoke Tsunade. Tsunade, are you out of your mind? After all that he has done to us, cried Koharu. She doing it, because she one of the few people in Konoha that still has any sense left, spoke Naruto. As she knows that given Konoha current condition, and given how it'll only get worse once you've done what I want, Your village will be in no shape to stand against the smaller shinobi villages, who decide to try and take your place as one of the 5 great shinobi villages. Meaning the only chance that you have of surviving is that you make alliance with us. I agree, an alliance with the Heavenly Alliance would be in the best interest of the village, said Hinata, where the other clan heads along with the ANBU commander agreed. So will you agree to form an alliance with us? Asked Tsunade hopefully. No, replied Naruto simply. But why? Asked Jiraiya. Simple, like before, Konoha has nothing to offer that would make an alliance worthwhile, as given the state your village is in, it would be only a hindrance to us, plus word is already spreading about the attempt made on my life by Uchiha Sasuke. Not to mention how Konoha's people reacted to the news of me being alive. Once they learn that, none of the alliance members will agree to an alliance with you, stated Naruto. There must be something you can do? After all, you're the leader of the shinobi section of the Heavenly Alliance and founder of it, spoke Tsunade, as they were desperate. Well, there is one way, where you will receive the protection and help of the Heavenly Alliance, although it will come at a price and it wouldn't be exactly what you asked for, replied Naruto. What do you mean? Asked Tsunade. Konoha cannot become our ally, as neither I, nor the other members of the Alliance trust certain members in your government, spoke Naruto, as he narrowed his eyes at Danzo, Koharu and the 2 civilian council members, indicating that it was them that he did not trust. But instead Konoha will become a protectorate of the Heavenly Alliance. Never, roared Danzo, as for the first time in many years the old Warhawk had completely lost his clan-neutral facade. For the idea of Konoha being a protectorate of the Heavenly Alliance was sacrilege to him, as Konoha might as well surrender or be destroyed. As Konoha would have given up its pride and honor and become the laughingstock of the world, as it would be completely dependent of the Heavenly Alliance. Well then, if that is the case, then we'll leave, as that is the only offer I will make and the only chance you have, replied Naruto. Danzo, you will sit down and be silent, ordered Tsunade. No, I will not let you sell out Konoha pride and future to this abomination, cried Danzo. Naruto of course remained calm to Danzo's insult, although he had to signal his men around the council chamber to stand down, as several of them looked ready to attack Danzo for his remark. He also had to do the same to his wives, as Yujito and some of the other girls looked ready to spatter Danzo across the room. Oh, and in case you're wondering, in return for our protection, Konoha will have to supply shinobis to help protect the other alliance members, allies and protectorates, as well as help train and improve the strength of the shinobis of the smaller shinobi nations, but more importantly, you will have to hand over the following things on the list as a down payment for our protection, stated Naruto, where he took out a scroll from his coat and threw it to Tsunade, who caught it. When Tsunade opened the scroll, she read a long list of high-level jutsu that belonged to Konoha. Naruto, you can't seriously expect us to hand over all these jutsus to you? Asked Tsunade in disbelief. As to a shinobi village, jutsus were worth more than gold, jewels or money. I'm very serious, as that is the price of Konoha's safety, answered Naruto. Tsunade, you can't seriously be thinking of agreeing to his demands. They were outrageous and they would leave you even weaker than we are now, cried Danzo as she stared at the blonde Hokage with slight anger. Ignoring Danzo, Tsunade quickly turned to Naruto. Naruto, what you asking is unreasonable. No shinobi village has never become the protectorate of another shinobi village, and we can't simply hand over so many high-level jutsus to you. First time for everything, old hag, replied Naruto, with a smirk that infuriated Danzo and Koharu. As for the jutsus, well, it's up to you to decide, which is more important, your jutsus or your village. After much debating, Tsunade ordered a vote to decide to among the council if they would agree to be a protectorate of the Heavenly Alliance. By the end of the vote it was decided, Danzo, Koharu and the civilians voted against the idea, and Sasuke's vote was automatically counted against the idea. Everyone else, including Hamura, voted for the idea, as they saw it as the only chance Konoha had in surviving the coming years, until they regained their strength. Then it's agreed Konoha will become a protectorate of the Heavenly Alliance, but will not hand over the jutsus until after the treaty is officially signed and we are under the Alliance protection, spoke Tsunade. Fair enough, replied Naruto. We'll come to the exact terms of the protection treaty in 2 months' time, during the Alliance gathering in 2 months' time, of which I will send word to you about later on. But I want the documents of my parents' accounts and as well as much as my inheritance as you can by tomorrow. Also don't even think about altering them, as I remember how much was in the accounts, so if you alter them I will know, spoke Naruto, where he looked coldly at Danzo. As Naruto was getting up, a furious Koharu, of course, could not help but give Naruto a piece of her mind. "You're enjoying shaming and humiliating us, aren't?" spat Koharu angrily. "How can do this to Konoha, the place you were born and raised in?" Where she would have continued, but was stopped as a potent killing intent flooded the council chambers. "How could I?" snarled Naruto furiously. "How could I not? For 12 years this cesspit of a village treated me like garbage, where I was beaten, abused, scorned, spat on and cursed, all because of what Namikaze did to me, to save your ungrateful asses. You should be grateful that I decided saved your hides when I did, as if I hadn't this village. Along with everyone it would be dead and gone. You destroyed a third of our village, where the majority of our people are homeless and are living in tents," retorted Koharu. "Better that than being dead, as I could have easily just waited until this entire village was destroyed and Orochimaru and his allies were exhausted from battle. But I didn't, because I knew that there were still some good people here that didn't deserve to die, people I care about, and who I still consider my friends, where they would have died had my forces and I had not appeared. It's that reason and that reason alone, that this village is not a burning ruin, filled with dead bodies, so I suggest you thank your blessings and leave it at that, as you won't be as lucky next time," said Naruto fiercely. Soon after, Naruto's killing intent died down, after which he turned around and he and the others then started to walk towards the large double doors and out of the council chambers. But before the doors opened and before Naruto and Ko could leave, Nara Shikaku spoke up. "Excuse me, Raikage Denka, but before you leave, could you answer one question for me?" At this, Naruto stopped and turned around to face Shikaku. "And what would that be, Shikaku-san?" asked Naruto calmly. "How long have you been planning this?" "Whatever do you mean, Shikaku-san?" asked Naruto with a ghost of a smile. "TSK, don't toy with me, Raikage Denka, you know what I mean," spoke Shikaku. At this, Naruto could not help but smile. I should have known that a Nara would figure it out. And to answer your question, since the kidnapping of Princess Sachi by Mizu no Kuni and Kirigakure. TSK, troublesome, I knew it, Shikamaru was right about you, you're a troublesome blonde," spoke Shikaku. "Shikaku, what are you talking about, and what do you mean by planning this?" asked Tsunade in confusion, as she didn't understand what they were talking about. "Perhaps you should tell them, Shikaku-san, as it might soften the blow a bit," spoke Naruto, with a knowing smile. At this, Shikaku muttered, "Troublesome blonde," before he spoke. "As a lot of you know, back when the Raikage forces attack the hold, it had several purposes. The main purpose was to rescue Princess Sachi of Ami no Kuni. This was to allow New Kumo and the Heavenly Alliance to gain favor with Suki no Kuni and Ami no Kuni, and get them to join the Heavenly Alliance, or at the very least, have them ally with the Alliance, allowing the Alliance to a strong influence in the Southern Sea trade. Obliviously it worked considering how things played out. Another objective was to release all the prisoners in the hold, and help the rebel factions rescue them, thereby gaining the rebel factions' support. This would be vital in the invasion of Mizu no Kuni and Kirigakure. Also, the way his forces attack the hold, so flashy, was not only to show off New Kumo's power and humiliate Mizu no Kuni and Kiri, but also to humiliate us by rescuing our own shinobis and to gain our attention," spoke Shikaku. "But why would he want to gain our attention?" Inoichi asked his old friend. "I will get to that in a minute. As you see, the battle of Nami no Kuni was also linked to his plan. For when he saved Nami no Kuni, he not only humiliated us again, by defeating a force that not even our best shinobis could defeat, but gained a strategic basis for his other operation, where he could station a large force there under the guise of protecting Nami no Kuni, without raising suspicion, as without Nami no Kuni as a base to open a third front. Along with gaining control of the large shipping industry that the people of Nami no Kuni took control of, after the shipping magnate Gato was killed, giving the Heavenly Alliance significant control of the shipping and trading industry in the Central Elemental Sea. Kiri would then have to land their forces by ships when the main attack on Konoha happened, allowing the Raikage's forces to surround both the Kiri armada and the retreating Kiri forces later on. The Battle of Nami no Kuni also served to further gain out attention, as the Raikage knew that after hearing about New Kumo's military strength at the hold, and after hearing firsthand of his power at Nami no Kuni, we were desperate to gain him and the Heavenly Alliance as our ally, due to our situation in the war. Thereby, we would send word to request an alliance, where he would come here, under the pretense of talking for the alliance, which in reality was to allow him entry into the village so that his covert force to sneak around the village and get his medical files and who knows what else, said Shikaku, shocking and angering many on the council. He also most likely, continued Shikaku, purposely had his bodyguard Okatsu tell Kakashi and Sasuke about the Jujutsu seal, knowing that Danzo would send his agents to try and capture shinobis belonging to the Heavenly Alliance, due to the threat they represent to us, where he then captured them and presented them to us, giving him the perfect excuse to leave the talks and disgracing village at the same time. Possibly even hoping to disgrace Danzo to the people and shinobis of the village, making him lose status and power in it. He also probably used the bad ending of the talks to make Orochimaru feel certain that New Kumo and the Heavenly Alliance wouldn't come to our aid, knowing that Haida was a spy for Orochimaru and would report that happenings of the talks to him, thereby making Orochimaru and his allies feel safe from attack by New Kumo and the Heavenly Alliance, and making them vulnerable to the Raikage attacks later on. At the same time as well, the Raikage gave us a fighting chance, so that we would last long enough for his main plan to work, which was another reason why he helped save Nami no Kuni, as without it Kiri couldn't open the third front against us and wreak further havoc on our forces. Along with that, he had Masato-san over there, informed Jiraiya, allowing us to set up a defense for Orochimaru's attack and get assistance from Suna, so that we would last long enough and weaken Orochimaru's coalition forces. As Orochimaru's attack was the main point of Naruto plan, as not only did it leave Kiri, Oto, and their host nations vulnerable to invasion, but it also laid out the main military might of the one force that could challenge the Heavenly Alliance, and weaken them as well as make them vulnerable to a sneak attack, when they were busy fighting with us. The Raikage's plan also probably involved weakening Konoha and Suna at the same time, as destroying Orochimaru's coalition, as the arrival of the Raikage's forces, just when all our lines were about to collapse was too perfect, meaning his force was most likely positioned behind Orochimaru and his allied forces and waited till we were about to fall and when Orochimaru's coalition forces were too focused on the battle to watch their rear, allowing Naruto force to completely take Orochimaru and his allies by surprise and wipe them out all in one go, and severely cripple Suna and us at the same time, as given the losses and damage we took, it will be a long time before we fully recover, meaning New Kumo the Heavenly Alliance would be the most powerful force in the elemental continent, where they took out most of their enemies and rivals with a small force, with little lose, where no one will be able to challenge them. Also with these invasions of Ta no Kuni and Mizu no Kuni, they've rid themselves of two major enemies and turned them into his allies. By placing the rebel factions in charge, who would be pro-Heavenly Alliance, and would depend greatly on it, to restore their nations, where they would most likely even ally with or join the Heavenly Alliance, strengthening its power and influence further, and giving them full control of the sea trade just as the Raikage mentioned earlier, spoke Shikaku, shocking Tsunade and the council even further. He even most likely knew that certain members on the council would attack him or try to have him arrested, allowing him to place hefty penalties on us for what happened. I'm also willing to bet that he planned on us wanting to ally with the Heavenly Alliance, given our current condition, which is why he had that list of justice belonging to Konoha at hand, finished Shikaka, leaving a completely stunned Tsunade, council members and Konoha shinobis, as they could not believe what they heard. So you're telling us that Konoha was nothing more than bait, to lure all of Naruto's enemies into one place and deal with all of them in one single go, with his small force? Spoke Jiraiya in shock. Pretty much, replied Shikaku, as he had to admit, Naruto's plan was perfect. He had used his knowledge of them as well as Orochimaru to the utmost effect, by predicting how they would react, knowing what they would do, as well as lay out enough bait for them to do what he wanted them to do. After Shikaku had finished explaining, there was the sound of a single person clapping in the chamber. Said person was none other than Naruto, who was also smiling in amusement, at hearing how Shikaku had figured out the true goal of Operation Dive Storm. Well done Shikaku-stan, I can see where Shikamaru get his brains from. I must say it's truly a pity that your clan is with Konoha, as the Heavenly Alliance would benefit greatly from the minds of the Nara clan. If you and your clan ever wish to join New Kumo, I would be more than happy to welcome you, spoke Naruto as he appalled Shikaku. So it's true? Asked Tsunade as she still had trouble believing it all. Most of it, although Shikaku was mistaken about a few things, answered Naruto. And what exactly did I get wrong? Asked Shikaku. Well, I didn't recuse Kuriani and her team, simply to humiliate Konoha, as I recused them because I still consider Lee and Choji my friends and Kurenai-san did nothing to earn my dislike and is Konohamaru's aunt. Haruno, on the other hand, just lucked out, as I knew if I had my forces leave her behind, Kuriani and the others would refuse to leave. The fact is, if it had been her, Hataki and the Uchiha, then you can be certain that I would have left them behind to be blown up," stated Naruto coldly, shocking those that knew Naruto, at how callously he was acted. "Another of your mistakes was that I saved Nami no Kuni simply because I wanted to station my forces there. I saved Nami no Kuni because I cared for the people there, and I would have done it regardless of my plans. As for humiliating Konoha, that was just an added bonus. Also, weakening Suna was not part of my plan. Quite frankly, I would have preferred that Suna had stayed out of this fight, as I had no ill will towards Gaara or his village and planned on asking him to join the alliance," stated Naruto. When Naruto finished explaining, the room became silent, as no one could believe that they had been manipulated and used by Naruto. Danzo and Koharu of course took the news the worst, as they were fuming at being told that they had been moved around and toyed with like puppets on a string by a mere boy. To them, it was especially aggravating to them, since they specialized in cloak and dagger operation, hence they couldn't believe they had been completely outwitted by Naruto, in their own field of speciality. "So you planned all this out, all to get revenge on us?" spoke Danzo as he narrowed his visible eye. "Please, I told you before, I'm not like your Uchiha. I don't care for revenge. I did what I did to ensure that New Kumo and the Heavenly Alliance would become the strongest force in the elemental continent. Anything else that happened to Konoha was simply a bonus, and I prefer to call it karma, as what goes around comes around, and like the old saying, karma is a bitch," said Naruto with a satisfied smirk and a cheeky salute. After which, he signaled for some of his storm agents to open the large double doors, where he and the others walked out. Upon which the storm means let go of the Konohanins around the council room and then retreated back into the wall, leaving Tsunade and everyone else alone in the room. As Naruto and the others walked out of the council chambers, Yujito spoke up. "You enjoyed that, didn't you?" she asked. "More than Ichiraku ramen," replied Naruto as they walked out of the Hokage mansion and out into the streets. In the earlier hours of the next day, the majority of New Kumo forces left Konoha and headed back to New Kumo. The few remaining New Kumo shinobis that remained with Naruto and the others boarded the New Kumo airships in the crater that Naruto created outside the village using his Inazuma. Loaded on the airships were the Jutsu scrolls and other things from the Namikaze library, along with items and things that belonged to Naruto's parents and decided were worth keeping. Before he left, Tsunade arrived with Jiraiya, Hamura, Koharu and Danzo and 2 squads of Root and Anbiyu. There Tsunade handed Naruto a scroll full of all the money that Konoha could afford giving Naruto, along with the letters and documents that belonged to Naruto parents, which were kept in the Hokage's secret safe. When Naruto took the scrolls full of money and the letters and documents, he stated that when they come to the Alliance gathering in 2 months' time, to discuss the details and the arrangements of becoming a protectorate of the Heavenly Alliance, and how exactly they would pay back the rest of Naruto's inheritance, with the added interest. As the fleet of airships rose up into the air, and flew in the direction of Kaminari no Kuni and New Kumo, Tsunade stared solely at Naruto's command ship, right up until it and the other airships became dots in the morning sky. "Goodbye Naruto, may we see each other again, and I'm sorry," thought Tsunade as she stared at the retreating dots in the sky, before she, Jiraiya, the council elders and their guards, returned to Konoha.